Chapter 1. July 26, 1991. Surrey, Staines, Thames, on the second floor of a luxurious villa. Facing the morning sun, Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the envelope in his hand with a dazed look. Just now, Ethan, who had just woken up and had not recovered yet, heard a rapid knocking sound from the window. The knocking sound on the second floor and outside made Ethan realize something and quickly got up and opened the window, and saw an owl fluttering in, holding a letter in its feet, which was the one in Ethan's hand now. The detailed address and Mr. Ethan Adrian were clearly written on the envelope in dark green ink. On the back was a crimson wax seal and a shield-shaped emblem composed of a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding the letter H. This day has finally come. As a time traveler, he also became a rich third generation. He had a plan for the future. He played with finance and stocks, and opened an impart in his spare time. He didn't know how happy he would be. But things didn't go as he wished. This world is not ordinary. In the second grade of elementary school, after the class was redivided, there was a guy named Harry Potter in the class. There was a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. During the break, a fat guy named Dolly came to pick a fight with him. From that moment on, Ethan understood what kind of world he came to. Hermione and his two good children. After thinking for 3 seconds, Ethan thought that it was good not to know magic. Anyway, magic and muggles are two different societies. Can't you avoid them if you can't afford to offend them? Isn't it over if you don't contact them? But within a month after that, Ethan had a magic riot, proving that he had the qualifications of a wizard. And with the qualifications of a wizard, you must also enroll. Of course, you can also choose magic schools in other countries, such as Ilvermorny. Except for the years when Voldemort was resurrected, the life of muggle wizards in other magic schools may not be better than that in Hogwarts. Alas. With a sigh, Ethan opened the envelope in his hand with some distress and took out the parchment inside. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Principal, Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Federation of Magic, President of the Wizard Association, First-Class Magician of the Order of Merlin, dear Mr. Adrian, we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Just when Ethan finished reading the admission notice, a golden interface suddenly appeared in front of him. This feeling is very wonderful. There is an extra thing in front of him, but it does not hinder Ethan's vision. He can see everything around him and this interface at the same time. The interface is also very simple and you can see it at a glance. Name, Ethan Adrian. Age, 11. Bloodline, Wizard Talent, XS Soul. A more solid soul brings higher learning efficiency and spellcasting speed. Strong body, improve physical fitness and adaptability to magic through exercise. Spell, none. In addition to his basic information, there is a red gift box tied with a ribbon in the lower right corner. There is no doubt that this is his rookie gift package. Although this gold finger looks very lame, it is better to have it than not. Without gold finger, it is not easy to survive in the magic world where blood resources are extremely monopolized. Now Ethan is in a good mood. It's just that he still has talent, which Ethan didn't expect. XS Soul should be brought by crossing, and he does have a strong learning ability. Strong body should be the physical talent of this life. Ethan is taller and stronger than his peers. In the past, he always thought it was the result of serious exercise. After all, if you want to move, how can you do it without a healthy and strong body? But I didn't expect that this talent could extend to magic. From this point of view, it seems that I can live well without gold finger. The red ribbon gift box is the newcomer gift pack. When Ethan focused on this, a piece of information flowed into his mind. Newbie gift pack, 3 random full level spells, I wish you a smooth journey of magic. 3 full level spells, this gift pack is still very sincere. The magic in this world is completely idealistic, and each magic is not that simple. Even the simplest magic can still have a good power if it is practiced well. For example, the illumination spell can be played as a flash bomb, the continuous spell can be used well as a human explosion spell, and the front teeth can be inserted into the head and neck. This is still the most basic magic, and there is no need to say more about the more advanced ones. I am a European in this life, so my luck will not be bad. As the bow-shaped ribbon slowly spread out, 3 golden lights shot up into the sky. It's gold, or 3 consecutive golds, and my mouth is about to be crooked with laughter. As the golden light faded, something appeared in the spell column on the panel. Before Ethan could see clearly, he froze in place with a crooked smile. In Ethan's vision, he was no longer in the room, but in a wilderness, with pale people everywhere. They were wailing, struggling, and rolling on the ground. From time to time, green lights flashed, causing the struggling and wailing people to fall silently. Some people were in a daze, with only their lifeless eyes staring at themselves. Crucio. Heartbreaking, Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra, Imperio. Soul leaving the body, as the spells, one heavier than the other, sounded in Ethan's mind, making Ethan's head heavy and his eyes bloodshot. He was a little shaky. A few minutes later, Ethan sat up again from the bed. He had completely learned these 3 spells. He did not need a wand or a spell. He could use them instinctively. At this moment, the column of spells had also changed. Spells, Killing Curse, 10, Cruciatus Curse, 10, Imperious Curse, 10, are these spells powerful? Very powerful. Voldemort's favorite. But these 3 spells cannot be used. This thing is the Unforgivable Curse. Once used on a person, they will need to stay in Azkaban for life. Before Ethan could sigh, the panel jumped up again. Falling into darkness, a self-degrading soul is going further and further on the path of a dark wizard. Achievement goal, learn the Unforgivable Curse, 3/3, achievement reward, improve dark magic talent. I am the darkness, trampling flesh and blood, playing with souls, reaping lives and falling into darkness. No, I am the darkness. Achievement goal, Unforgivable Curses max level, 3/3, goal reward, talent Heart of Darkness, improve black magic talent, use black magic without any emotional assistance. The mastermind incredible. You who appear harmless are actually the one who hides the deepest. Achievement goal, no one knows that your unforgivable curses have reached the pinnacle, 3/3, achievement reward, use any magic, as long as it is not seen by your own eyes, it will not be noticed by anyone. What the hell are you hinting at? Seeing these achievements, Ethan's face was a little stiff. Doesn't this mean that I'm not a good person? Coo, coo, coo. The cry of an owl interrupted Ethan, who was still going crazy. This reminded Ethan that he still had to write a reply. Of course, he had to prepare some food for the owl. First. Chapter 2. July 28th, early morning. Didn't you sleep well last night? Yet. Ethan nodded to Philem and Adrian, who was reading a newspaper on the sofa. In the past 2 days, he had indeed spent a lot of time studying magic. Imperious Curse, Killing Curse, Cruciatus Curse, each of which had been experimented countless times, resulting in a serious lack of sleep time, so that his spirit was a little sluggish. These were the unforgivable curses, which Ethan could not use on human bodies. The best target was mice. Ethan directly asked the servants to sell 100 of them, and they have not been used up yet. It was also thanks to these mice that Ethan had a deeper understanding of magic. To use magic successfully, the conditions of wand, gesture, spell, emotion, and magic output are indispensable. However, the full-level spell completely eliminated the wand, gesture, and spell, and only required emotion and magic output. But Ethan, who had the talent of Heart of Darkness, did not need the assistance of emotions, and could cast magic as long as he controlled the output of magic. In just 2 days, Ethan went from casting the Killing Curse with his fingers to casting it with his eyes, and he could really kill anyone he glared at. The full-level Killing Curse and the double-strengthened Dark Talent are really awesome. Even Voldemort's Killing Curse is not as good as Ethan's. The only pity is that this magic cannot be used openly. And 2 achievements were also completed in the process. Wandless casting high-end magic use skills. You have walked far enough on the road of magic. Achievement goal: complete a successful spell without using a wand. Achievement reward: a random magic reel. Electric eyes, glowing eyes, the most beautiful child. Achievement goal: successfully release a light-related magic with both eyes. Achievement reward: a random magic. The results of these 2 draws are also acceptable. Petrification Curse and a magic called Energy Siphoning. There is nothing much to say about the Petrification Curse, which has appeared many times in the original book, and the effect is not bad. Siphon energy: use magic to detonate the enemy, causing explosion damage while absorbing the opponent's magic to create a magic shield for yourself, and can strengthen the next magic used. It looks like a skill of a certain three-handed person, but it is a modified version. However, these 2 magics are not full level like the 3 unforgivable curses in the newbie gift package, but only the most basic first level form. Ethan knows spells and gestures, but he can't cast them without a wand. But it's okay, he can get a wand today. According to the owl reply received yesterday, a professor from Hogwarts will come to guide the new students today. I have to say that this owl flies really fast. At the same time, the panel has also changed. Name: Ethan Adrian. Age: 11. Bloodline: Wizard. Talents: Super Soul. A stronger soul brings higher learning efficiency and spellcasting speed. Strong body: improve physical fitness and adaptability to magic through exercise. Heart of Darkness: improve black magic talent, and use black magic without any emotional assistance. Spells: Killing Curse, 10, Cruciatus Curse, 10, Imperious Curse, 10, Siphon Energy, 1, Petrification Curse, 1, if it were me, I would also be too excited to sleep. Philem and Adrian put down the newspaper in his hand and expressed his understanding. Children are definitely very yearning for the magical world. Even if Ethan usually behaves precociously, it is normal for him to be like this at his age. I am not excited, but tired from studying magic. Lying on the sofa, Ethan said weakly. What have you figured out? Without a wand, you can't use magic, so you still have to buy a wand first. Philem and Adrian's mouth twitched when he heard this. This kid was just playing a trick on him. Okay, it's time for breakfast, both of you. Just when Philem and Adrian wanted to say something, his mother Nisha's voice came from behind. Nisha usually doesn't go into the kitchen. These are all done by the nanny. She is not a full-time wife. In Adrian's ocean-going company, Nisha is responsible for the operation. When she is busy, it is common for her and Philemon to be away from home for a month. Today, because the professor of Hogwarts is coming, the couple rushed home from America the day before yesterday and arrived home yesterday. The couple still attaches great importance to Ethan's going to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Although they have never seen a wizard, they also know that this is very likely to be true, not a prank. After all, it is not common to have such a well-trained owl. My family is engaged in ocean freight, and there are indeed some strange things in the sea. Outsiders just think that some sailor got drunk and saw things wrong, or he got drunk in the bar and boasted to attract attention. But everyone in this industry knows that this is true, and once discovered, it must be reported to a special person to solve it. In addition, my family has some connections with the British Navy, and some news has been passed down from the previous generation, so I have a little understanding of the world of wizards. It was exactly 9 o'clock. The Ethan family sat upright on the sofa, and the doorbell rang at this time. I'm here. Philemon took a deep breath, stood up and prepared to open the door. He didn't know how many years he hadn't been so nervous. Because of what his father said, the things about wizards cannot be spread widely, and it is better for ordinary people not to know, so today the servants in the house have a day off, and I have to open the door myself. The first thing that caught my eye was a dark green robe and a wizard hat on the head, followed by a female face in her 60s with square-framed glasses, but she looked a little serious. Chapter 3. Mr. Adrian, I am Minerva McGonagall, the Vice Principal of Hogwarts, the Dean of Gryffindor, and the Professor of Transfiguration. Professor McGonagall introduced herself immediately. As the Vice Principal of Hogwarts, she is also one of the few reliable professors. She is responsible for half of the new students from Muggle families every summer vacation. Professor McGonagall has seen many Muggle families over the years, and has even been pointed at many times. She summarized the following points. Families that do not believe it at all and just think it is a prank will basically ignore the admission notice. Facing such families, Professor McGonagall has to show off her skills when she visits them, such as turning the door into a lion, etc. For those Muggle families who are skeptical and send a reply letter within the specified time according to the rules, Professor McGonagall also follows the rules, confirms the time and visits them to show off her skills. It can be said that she is very experienced. Welcome, Professor McGonagall, please come in and sit down. Facing a wizard with extraordinary power, Philem and Adrian did not dare to neglect. Professor McGonagall, although we believe that no one will use this kind of thing to play a prank, can you please prove it? After greeting and inviting Professor McGonagall to take a seat, Nisha could not help but say. Although she believed in the existence of magic, as a mother, she must know more about the situation. Of course, this is also one of the purposes of my coming here, to prove the authenticity of the existence of magic, and that little Adrian was indeed admitted to the magic school, and then to take little Mr. Adrian to buy school supplies. Professor McGonagall smiled and nodded, then took out his wand and gently waved it at the fruit plate on the coffee table. In an instant, the fruit plate and the 7 apples in it turned into cats, a total of 8 British Shorthairs, 1 big and 7 small. The cats were not honest after being transformed, and jumped off the coffee table one after another. This move really shocked Philemon and Nisha. It was definitely magic that happened right before their eyes. Professor McGonagall, is this transfiguration? Ethan grabbed a cream-colored kitten and wanted to see if he could find any difference from a real cat. The short and dense fur was very elastic, and the thick body could feel the movement of the muscles. Because Ethan's technique was uncomfortable, it was struggling and meowing. No matter from which aspect, this is a real British Shorthair. Not only does it look the same, but its behavior is also the same. It is completely in line with the habits of a cat, not as dull as Ethan imagined. No wonder there are Gamp's transfiguration laws, the first of which is that food cannot be transformed by transfiguration. After all, the transformed food is exactly the same as the real thing, and it is completely indistinguishable. I can only say that this transfiguration is really awesome. Yes, this is transfiguration. If you have a talent in this area, you can join my club in the future. Professor McGonagall was very pleased with Ethan's expression. Soon, Ethan sent another inquiry, Professor McGonagall, are these cats under your control? I mean, the one in my hand and the 2 that are scratching the sofa, after all, it looks like cats would do that. At this time, Professor McGonagall became serious. This little wizard is indeed different. It is the first time for him to encounter such a problem after working as a freshman receptionist for so many years. I immediately replied, no, although I can control all their actions, I am not doing so at the moment. This is all its own instinct. Professor McGonagall, you mean that they have become cats and have the natural reaction of cats? Before you remove the transfiguration, they are cats, right? Yes, that's it. Professor McGonagall was very satisfied with Ethan's answer. With this super high sensitivity to transfiguration, this boy should come to our Gryffindor. Think about what has happened in the past 2 years. The Weasley twins, it was them who brought Gryffindor to the bottom of the valley. Professor McGonagall, did you add the reaction after transformation when you transformed? Ethan asked. No, I didn't add it, but transfiguration is like this. If you want to succeed in perfect transformation, you need clear thinking and deep cognition. Seeing that Ethan had no more questions, Professor McGonagall began to talk with Philemon and Nisha. Showing magic was just the first step. The rest needed to answer a series of questions about Hogwarts, including the learning environment, holiday issues, and communication with family. After all, you can't show off your magic and the other party will hand over the child to you without knowing anything. Who knows if you are using the child for some experiment? That would be a threat. Ethan didn't pay attention to Professor McGonagall's conversation with his parents. He was still immersed in thinking about transfiguration. After all, he knew something about the situation in Hogwarts. Although Professor McGonagall's answer just now was not clear, it could only be regarded as a concept. But the education in the wizarding world is like this. You can't expect professors to crush all the knowledge and feed it to you. If you can understand, think, and do it, you are talented. Otherwise, you are stupid. The professors have no choice but to give up on these students. If you don't do well in the 5th year OWL's exam, you will lose the qualification to continue studying this course. Professor McGonagall's words, combined with Ethan's experience of using black magic in the past 2 days, transfiguration mainly relies on consciousness and magic. This is completely different from black magic that requires negative emotions and the patroness charm of positive emotions. In your subconscious cognition, the transformed object has what characteristics and what form it is, so it will be what it is after transformation. In other words, as long as you have enough magic power, enough cognition, and enough understanding of transfiguration, not only magical animals, but also mythical creatures can be transformed, and they are still the forms in your consciousness. In this way, the level of transfiguration is really quite high. Chapter 4. Soon, Professor McGonagall finished talking to Ethan's parents and turned his attention to Ethan again. Professor McGonagall completed today's pickup mission very smoothly. Compared with the endless strange questions of other parents, this couple mainly asked about the learning environment and the various rules and regulations of Hogwarts. It is normal to not understand transfiguration before you have undergone systematic learning. After entering Hogwarts, you can think about these things. If you still don't understand, you can also come and ask me. Professor McGonagall saw that Ethan was still thinking while petting the cat, and immediately comforted him. Okay, thank you Professor McGonagall. Ethan put down the cat in his hand and responded to Professor McGonagall with a smile. This is the duty of a professor. Professor McGonagall casually moved the wand in his hand, and 8 cats, 1 big and 7 small, floated in the air and turned back into fruit plates and apples, and placed them on the coffee table as before. Even the sofa that was scratched by the cats after the transformation was restored to its original state. After doing all this, Professor McGonagall stood up and said to Ethan, Mr. and Mrs. Adrian, it's time to go to Diagon Alley to buy school supplies. Philemon on the side took out a stack of pounds and sent Professor McGonagall and Ian to the door with Nisha. After talking, they also thought that Professor McGonagall's identity was fine. If he had bad intentions, he wouldn't have told them so much. As for Diagon Alley, in Professor McGonagall's mouth, it's better not to contact Muggles. Forcing contact with the wizarding world will not benefit oneself. Hold my hand now, don't let go. We use magic to reach the outside of Diagon Alley. This process will be a bit uncomfortable. Professor McGonagall said so in the courtyard. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded to Professor McGonagall. Well, I'm ready, Professor McGonagall. As for what will happen next, Ethan already knows, apparition. Beginners, or those who are not used to it, will feel a lack of oxygen, and their bodies will be squeezed and deformed. Pop. Pop. Accompanied by the unique sound of apparition, Ethan and Professor McGonagall suddenly appeared in front of a dirty, shabby, small bar in a London neighborhood. Ethan, who was having some difficulty breathing, took a deep breath to adjust himself. This process was indeed a bit uncomfortable. Are you okay, Mr. Adrian? It's okay. I was a little uncomfortable when I landed just now, but I'm much better now. As he spoke, Ethan had almost recovered. Now it seemed that he was just like that. Seeing that Ethan was indeed fine, Professor McGonagall explained, apparition is one of the ways wizards travel. It can be learned in the 6th grade, but it requires self-funded learning and needs to be assessed at the Department of Magical Transportation. It is a very dangerous magic. The Leaky Cauldron, which can only be seen by wizards, is the entrance to Diagon Alley. Remember the address. You need to come alone to get school supplies for the 2nd year. As he spoke, Professor McGonagall led Ethan into the bar. I don't know if it was because of the time or the morning, there were no customers inside, only a hunchbacked man wiping the seats. Seeing someone coming in, the hunchbacked man put down the sackcloth, raised his head and took a look, and said casually, "Good morning, Professor McGonagall, you are here to guide the new students again today." "Good morning, Tom." Professor McGonagall greeted Ethan as he walked inside. Ethan, who was passing by, was a little confused. He had a cleaning spell, but why did he still wipe the table? This man was not a squib and could use magic. Passing through the bar and coming to the backyard, there were only some weeds and trash cans against the wall besides the wall. Stopping in front of the trash can, Professor McGonagall turned his head and said seriously, "Mr. Adrian, please remember my next move. Count 3 bricks up and 2 bricks horizontally." Professor McGonagall tapped the brick 3 times with his wand. In an instant, the bricks on the wall seemed to come alive and began to arrange in a regular pattern until an arch was formed. And the other side of the door was the real magical world, with cobblestone roads, winding streets, crooked houses, and people wearing wizard robes everywhere. Let's go in exchange for gold galleons, which is the currency of wizards. As a guide NPC for so many years, this process is already familiar. After exchanging for gold galleons, buy a wand, then go to the bookstore, clothing store, crucible store, and pet store, and then you can call it a day. Buying the wand first is not because it is close, but because the little wizard is in a hurry. Professor McGonagall can't remember how many times he has been begged to buy a wand first. Soon, under the guidance of Professor McGonagall, Ethan came to the gate of Gringotts. After stepping through the first bronze door, Ethan also saw the warning on the second silver-white door, "Please come in, stranger, but you have to be careful what will happen if you are greedy, just asking for it, getting something for nothing, you will definitely be punished most severely, so if you want to rush into our underground vault to take a piece of wealth that does not belong to you, thief. You have been warned, be careful not to attract treasure, but bad retribution. Aren't goblins the most greedy? After all, their prototype is a race that likes to collect wealth and stir up trouble. Professor McGonagall, how can I help you?" As soon as he entered the hall, a goblin in a suit came to greet him. As the vice principal of Hogwarts, McGonagall also has some status in the British wizarding world, worthy of these goblins' serious treatment, and her wealth is still very attractive to goblins. "Help the freshmen exchange currency," Professor McGonagall said, pointing to Ethan. "Please come here." Following the guidance of the goblin, Ethan and Professor McGonagall soon came to an unmanned counter on the right. £5 for 1 gold galleon, with a maximum of 100 gold galleons. According to Professor McGonagall, if freshmen do not pursue luxury, 100 gold galleons is enough, and there will be some surplus, and there is no place to spend money in. Hogwarts. Chapter 5. Outside Gringotts, Ethan played with the gold galleons in his hand and looked at Professor McGonagall with some doubts. "Professor McGonagall, is there gold in this gold galleon?" "I don't know about that. The currency of the wizarding world is cast by goblins, and there are also magic processes added to it, such as always shining like new, preventing flying spells and wear and tear." After saying that, Professor McGonagall sighed inwardly. This kid might really go to Ravenclaw because he loves to explore too much. Forget it, let's buy it for free. Ethan made up his mind immediately. Under the leadership of Professor McGonagall, the two walked through Diagon Alley and soon came to the door of a small and shabby store. It looked completely different from Gringotts just now. Don't worry, the craftsmanship of the Ollivander family is trustworthy. For many years, almost all wizards at Hogwarts have purchased wands from their family. Thinking that Ethan was frightened by the old and small store, Professor McGonagall had to explain and then led the way inside. Inside the store, Ethan looked around and saw long and narrow paper boxes almost piled up to the ceiling, which made the store, which was not big to begin with, look even more narrow and cramped. "Good morning." Ollivander, who heard the noise, came from behind the pile of wands with a kind smile on his face. 9.5 inches, fur, dragon heartstring, exquisite and elegant, suitable for wizards with strong willpower and talent for transfiguration. "Minerva, it's like you bought a wand here just yesterday." Ollivander's old habit came back again. As long as the wand was bought from him, he remembered it clearly and habitually recalled this scene. "Good morning, Garrick, that was decades ago." Professor McGonagall showed helplessness on his face. He heard this at least once a year. "The little wizard behind, can you tell me your name? And come forward." After greeting, Ollivander was ready to get down to business. In his opinion, finding a qualified partner for every wand he made by hand is the happiest thing. "Ethan Adrian." After Ethan broke out his name, he stepped forward and came to Ollivander. "What is your dominant hand?" "Right hand, sir." Ethan answered in cooperation, and raised his right hand to facilitate the magic ruler to measure on his body. "I don't know what the measurement results mean." A wizard who is only 11 years old has a lot of room for growth in the future. After taking a look at the measured data, Ollivander turned and went to the counter at the back. Not long after, he came back with a pile of boxes. Ollivander put down the wand box and looked at Ethan with a serious expression. Every wand is unique. It is not the wizard who chooses the wand, but the wand that chooses the wizard. Mr. Adrian, try this one, apple wood, unicorn hair, 9 inches long, suitable for wizards with lofty ideals and pursuits, come and try to wave it. Speaking of Ollivander, he handed the wand in his hand to Ethan. Ethan took it in his hand and waved it gently. The next moment, the wand box on the right collapsed with a loud bang, splashing a large amount of dust. Ahem. It seems that this is not the one. Restored to its original state. After taking the wand back from Ethan, Ollivander waved the wand gently, and then the collapsed wand boxes floated up and returned to their previous positions. It's okay, this is all normal, try this one. Redwood, Dragon's Heartstring, 11.5 inches, this is a wand that can bring good luck, plus the Dragon's Heartstring, it has powerful power, a great combination. After comforting Ethan, Ollivander immediately handed the next wand to Ethan. Ethan, who took the wand, felt a burning sensation in his palm. As before, waved it twice gently. A ball of red flame suddenly sprayed out from the top of the wand, almost burning Ollivander's white hair. Touching the white hair on his head, Ollivander didn't say much, and quickly took the wand from Ethan's hand. Cedar wood, phoenix tail feathers, 10 3/4 inches, suitable for wizards with keen insight. When he handed the wand to Ethan this time, Ollivander obviously took 2 steps back. Bang! The vase next to him, which was unknown how many years old, shattered with a sound. Ollivander cast a skilled repair spell and took out another wand and handed it to Ethan. Boom! Try this one again. Crack! Well, picky guests, try this one instead. In almost an hour, Ethan tried dozens of wands. Some made a little noise, and some were taken over by Ollivander as unsuitable. But some wands, Ethan felt very smooth, and the magic flowed quickly. In Ethan's perception, the petrification spell and siphon energy that he had learned could be used easily, but Ollivander still thought they were unsuitable. Mr. Adrian, please wait a moment. I know the right wand for you. Ollivander turned and walked towards the warehouse at the back. If it were a normal businessman, he would have started to drive away such a picky customer, but Ollivander would not. On the contrary, he enjoyed it. It was a great sense of accomplishment for him to let picky customers get matching wands. The wands that Ethan just tried were all mainstream in Great Britain, namely unicorn hair, phoenix tail feathers, and dragon heartstrings. These are also the wand core materials that Ollivander likes to use the most. In theory, these 3 materials meet almost everyone's needs. Unicorn hair can reflect the essence of magic, and is not easily disturbed by other magic. It has the characteristics of loyalty and stability, but it is not easy to use black magic. Phoenix tail feathers have a wide range of magic and have a certain degree of initiative, but the wand of phoenix tail feathers is very picky and not easy to be tamed. Dragon heartstring, this is simple and crude, the spell it casts is the most powerful and dazzling, but the disadvantage is that it is easy to succumb to dark magic and is not very stable. In addition to these 3 wand cores, Ollivander has actually used other materials, which is also to learn from other wand makers to keep himself in line with the world. For example, the tail feathers of thunderbirds, the horns of jackalopes, the hair of ocelots, the hair of vela, the mane of kelpies, the beard of trolls, the tail feathers of the thestrals, the horns of horned water snakes, etc. Chapter 6. Black prickly pear wood, thunderbird tail feathers, 11 2/3 inches, a very powerful wand, a wand unique to warriors, and also extremely suitable for transfiguration, but this power is difficult to control. Ollivander said as he took out a dark wand from a dusty box and carefully handed it to Ethan. He found that Ethan was particularly suitable for powerful wands. The dragon core string was active and submissive, and had a strong desire to perform. The phoenix tail feathers were also similar, and were considered to be more cooperative. Only the unicorn hair was the least suitable. Zzz. The moment Ethan held the wand, bright electric currents jumped on Ethan's body, but Ethan himself did not have any uncomfortable reactions. After trying to wave it, Ethan found that the magic power in his body was very smooth when passing through the wand, and at the same time he had an illusion that the wand was a part of his body. Mr. Ollivander, I feel that this is the one. Ethan said very confidently. After trying so many wands, this one gave Ethan the best feeling. Plus being good at fighting and transfiguration, this attribute is also quite good. This is the one that suits him. No, not this one. Ollivander shook his head and denied Ethan's conclusion. He has been dealing with wands all his life, from selecting materials to making them, and finally choosing a qualified wizard for them. Years of experience and the wizard's super high perception enable Ollivander to determine the attitude of the wizard and the wand towards each other based on different reactions when the little wizard holds the wand. Just like before, this black prickly pear thunderbird wand also tried its best to express itself when it was held by Ethan, looking forward to being chosen by Ethan. In fact, this is also a good combination, at least the wizard and the wand are satisfied with each other, but Ollivander feels that for Ethan, there is a more suitable wand waiting for him. Okay. Ethan shrugged helplessly and put the black prickly pear wand in his hand into the wand box. I don't know what kind of wand I can choose in the end. Aspen wood, horn of a long-horned water snake, 12.5 inches, a wand for duelists, powerful and can also warn snake-mouthed people. At the same time, there was another sentence that Ollivander did not say. This is also the most expensive wand in his shop. The price difference between the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts this time is less than 5,000 gold galleons, which he will not do. The precious materials, plus his craftsmanship, are worth the price. For ordinary wands, such as unicorn hair, it is enough to add 10 or 20 gold galleons. After all, unicorn hair only costs 10 galleons, and then the price is based on the material of the wand body. Dragon heartstring is more expensive, and the price varies according to different dragon species. Phoenix tail feathers are more expensive than dragon heartstrings. Fortunately, there are still some stocks, and the wands made of phoenix tail feathers are also picky and are rarely chosen by wizards, otherwise they will have to urge Dumbledore to let the phoenix reborn quickly. Twin wands, Harry and Voldemort are the same phoenix. Although it is not clear, they should be plucked at the same time. The other wand cores should be different periods of nirvana of the phoenix. Each nirvana represents a new life. Otherwise, there are only 2 phoenixes known in the wizarding world now, which is too few. Either the phoenix tail feather wand is out of print, or all are twins. The number of horned water snakes living in America is rare, and the regeneration cycle of this horn can take more than 10 years to fully mature. In addition, the horned water snake wand is extremely popular in America. After all, the founder of Ilvermorny used the horned water snake wand, which is in a state of being hard to find. Even Ollivander himself spent a lot of effort to get this thing. But this has nothing to do with Ethan. Ollivander's wand shop has cooperated with Hogwarts and the Ministry of Magic for hundreds of years. It can be said that the 3 parties signed a contract just a few years after the establishment of the Ministry of Magic. This is also for better control of wands. Of course, there are still wand makers in private, but their level is not as good as that of the Ollivander family. Almost all wizards still choose Ollivander. Inside Great Britain, just after taking the popular long-horned water snake wand, before I had time to feel it, I heard Ollivander's regretful voice. This wand is also not the most suitable for you. Ollivander turned his head, not knowing which wand to take. The moment Ethan took it, this popular long-horned water snake wand was no different from the previous black prickly pear thunderbird wand, so there was no need to look at it. It can only be said that Ethan is too talented in combat or dark magic, and this wand has become a dog that recognizes its master the moment it touches it. Garrick. Looking at Ollivander, who was stunned in place after taking back the wand, Professor McGonagall was also a little worried. She didn't know much about the ins and outs of this, but she had never seen such an Ollivander. In the past, no matter how picky the little wizard was, Ollivander could calmly choose a suitable wand for him. If Ethan couldn't get the wand, it would be troublesome. How can he learn magic without a wand? No, it's okay, but Mr. Adrian's talent shocked me. Speaking of this, Ollivander put away all the wand boxes on the counter and bent down to grope for something under the counter. Try this one, you would. Thestral tail feathers, 15 inches. My most successful work for a period of time. To be precise, this is Ollivander's collection. He didn't think that this wand could find a suitable wizard, but now he wants to try. Ethan has an excellent talent, which Ollivander is sure of, and this wand is indeed stronger than other wands in combat and dark magic. In his middle age, Ollivander thought that his skills were high enough and wanted to make the strongest wand to prove his authority in the circle of wand makers. The template is naturally the Elder Wand, which is a recognized artifact with a uniform size of 15 inches. It starts with Elder and Thestral feathers, but there are always some flaws. Later, experiments were conducted on Elder and other wand cores, as well as various combinations of Thestral feathers and other wand bodies. After several years, countless efforts and money were spent, and finally failed. The Elder Wand is indeed not something that mortals can make. Although it failed, there are many finished products, and the most perfect one is the Thestral feather wand in front of him. Under the gaze of Ollivander and Professor McGonagall, Ethan bit the bullet and picked up the Thestral feather wand. Although Ollivander did not give any explanation, Ethan still knew that wood was used. Voldemort's wand was made of this material, which was suitable for dark magic. The tail feathers of the Thestrals were also evil things. The core of the Elder Wand was made of this material. The magic power in his body seemed to come alive. The moment he touched this wand, the wand he had tried before was easy to use, but it was not as great as the increase brought by this wand. Originally, there was an outlet, which made it easier to control magic power and control the output of magic power through the wand. Now it feels that magic power is no longer rigid, and it can be operated freely according to one's will. In the eyes of Professor McGonagall and Ollivander, dark and deep streams of light spurted out from the tip of the wand and swirled around Ethan's arm. This is it, Mr. Adrian. Ollivander was very satisfied with this scene. He found a suitable wand for a picky wizard and a suitable wizard for his treasure. As for the so-called talent for dark magic, it was nothing to Ollivander. It was best if nothing happened. If something happened, the Ministry of Magic would take care of it. I was just a wand seller. After paying 7 gold galleons for the wand, Ethan and Professor McGonagall finally left Ollivander's wand shop. Next, under the leadership of Professor McGonagall, Ethan went to Flourish and Blots, Madame Malkin's robe shop, and Partridge's cauldron shop. A total of 68 gold galleons and 9 cigs were spent, of which the textbooks of various subjects were the biggest. Freshmen can also bring a pet, owl, toad, mouse. But Ethan refused, so he didn't go to Ella Owl shop. After all, toads and mice were not interesting to Ethan at all, and as for owls, Hogwarts had them, so he could use some owl rations to get them for free. Chapter 7. Lemon Sherbet. Professor McGonagall returned to Hogwarts and stepped into the principal's office after finishing the day's affairs. The first thing that caught his eye was an old man with long silver hair, blue eyes, and a long nose. By the way, the nose was a little crooked. There was black tea and several kinds of desserts on the table. It was obviously his afternoon tea time. Minerva, you came at the right time, Dumbledore said, and he had already poured a cup of black tea for Professor McGonagall and took out a lot of desserts from under the desk. As a lonely old man over 100 years old, there was usually no one to accompany him for afternoon tea. Lonely was completely his normal state. Today, he was in a good mood because he had a companion. Albus, I have something to tell you. Sitting opposite Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall did not touch the desserts and black tea on the table, but talked about Ethan's various things, from Ethan's home to the wand shop, all narrated. This year our school will welcome a talented little wizard. After listening patiently, Dumbledore took a sip of the black tea on the table. Except for a few exceptions, such as Harry, Dumbledore treated all other little wizards equally, whether they were muggles or purebloods, with good or bad talents, they were all his students, there was no difference. Ethan's talent did make him pay more attention, but that was all. It's good that you know. After that, Professor McGonagall began to enjoy afternoon tea. Although they valued Ethan's talent, they didn't have any other ideas. Professor McGonagall came just to remind Dumbledore, after all, talented people will always be paid extra attention. After teaching at Hogwarts for so many years, what kind of people have you not seen? Isn't it just a little wizard with a talent for dark magic? We have also taught many members of Azkaban. On the other side, after Ethan returned home, he talked to his parents about Diagon Alley and the situation of wizards. After lunch, he returned to his room. I just completed several achievements but haven't had time to check them. The first stop of wizards step into the world of wizards. Although it looks narrow, dirty, and backward, it is indeed the world of wizards. Achievement goal, enter the gathering place of wizards, 1/1, achievement reward, improve wizard talent first pot of gold golden gold galleons, mine, all mine. Achievement goal, get 100 gold galleons, 1/1, achievement reward, 100 gold galleons wooden stick a magic wand hold this wooden stick that looks like a small wooden stick. It will accompany you for the rest of your magic career. Achievement goal, get a magic wand, 1/1, achievement reward, a random magic knowledge is power knowledge is the ladder of progress, the source of wizard power, and the foundation of wizards. Achievement goal, get a book that records wizard knowledge, 1/1, achievement reward, talent focus, greatly improves learning efficiency, take the blame the first step of making potions is to have a cauldron. Achievement goal, own a cauldron, 1/1, achievement reward, improved potion talent I didn't expect it. I got 5 achievements just by going to Diagon Alley. My wizard talent improved, my potion talent improved. My heavy soul talent has already improved my learning efficiency. Now that focus has been improved, I can't leave anyone else a way out. I also have 100 gold galleons and a magic spell. Ethan didn't have any idea of a euro accumulating 10 consecutive draws. He would use it if he got it. As the familiar information flowed into his mind, Ethan also knew about the spell he got this time. It's better than nothing. Disillusionment spell, hide your body from being discovered. It's a special spell for night tours of Hogwarts. Powerful wizards can see through the disillusionment spell, but Filch certainly can't. It's just that this spell is not considered advanced. It's in the textbook, but I don't know which grade it is from. Next, I will try these magics. Except for the 3 unforgivable spells at the maximum level, I have not tried other magics because I don't have a wand. Invisible without a trace. As the voice fell, Ethan gradually became transparent from his footsteps until he completely disappeared. It was very simple and smooth, but the process was a little slow. Disrupting the flow of magic power, Ethan took the initiative to recover from the invisible state. Then he tried a few more times, and the speed of invisibility was getting faster and faster, until the spell could be successful during movement. Next is the petrification spell. This requires the white mouse to be used again. Petrification. A blue light shot out from the top of the magic wand, and the moment it hit the white mouse stopped moving and turned grey. But how to remove this thing? Wait until the magic power is naturally consumed? Forget it, never mind, throw the petrified mouse aside, and then use the magic of siphoning energy. With a bang, the mouse in the box was blown to pieces. But it didn't form a shield, nor did it strengthen the next spell. After a little thought, Ethan understood what was going on. This mouse has no magic power, and it can't absorb anything at all, so it can only be used as an explosion spell. To fully exert the full effect of siphoning energy, it has to be used on wizards or magical animals. He tried all the magic he knew, and finally the magic in the textbook, and took out the standard spells, elementary. After a rough look, Ethan found that there was not much content in this book, only the illumination spell, the unlocking spell, the repairing spell, the cutting spell, the levitation spell, the flame spell, and the binding spell. After going through the information of these spells in his mind, he felt no pressure. He turned to the page of the cutting spell and read it carefully, and then looked at the repairing spell. Shattered into pieces. Restored as before. The vase that had just exploded, as if time had gone back, all the fragments returned to their original positions, and the cracks disappeared. Then Ethan began to learn other magic and learned them all before dinner. I can only say that magic is much easier to learn than mathematics and physics. There is absolutely no pressure at all. Chapter 8. A few days later, Ethan came to the door of the leaky cauldron again. This time, maybe because it was afternoon, the leaky cauldron was bustling compared to the last time. Facing the little wizard who came alone, the pub guests did not pay much attention. This situation happened many times every day. According to Professor McGonagall's instructions, after knocking on the corresponding brick 3 times, the door to the magic world opened again. The moment he saw the trash can, Ethan really wanted to do something. After all, according to the nature of Goldfinger, pranks are likely to be successful. But after thinking for 2 seconds, Ethan gave up the idea. Entering Diagon Alley again, Ethan's goal was clearly flourish and blots. Last time, he bought textbooks for the first grade of Hogwarts with Professor McGonagall, and none of the spells Ethan wanted to learn were included. For example, the shield charm, the traceless extension charm, and the occlumency charm. Although the traceless extension charm is prohibited from being abused, Hermione clearly used it, and she didn't look through the banned books, so this spell should be common. The reason for the prohibition of abuse is probably promoted by those companies that produce wizard tents and suitcases. After all, who would buy it if they can make it themselves? In addition, there are 2 people who play legilimency in Hogwarts. If they don't know how to perform brain occlumency, Ethan is more or less worried. Dumbledore's character is still somewhat guaranteed. He will not cast this magic on his students, or he will not cast this magic on others without their consent. The reason why he is proficient in this magic is also very simple. Dumbledore was not a good person before Ariana's accident. Like Grindelwald, he is the kind of person who can do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. After this, Dumbledore's life took a turn, he had his own bottom line, and returned to Hogwarts to become a professor. If Dumbledore had no bottom line, many things would not have happened. For example, when Hagrid was wrongly accused, Dumbledore was already a professor. At that time, although he was able to determine that Hagrid was not the murderer and tried to save Hagrid. But because he could not produce evidence, Hagrid was expelled from school in the end. If legilimency was used to investigate, Tom would not have been able to escape, and it is unknown whether Voldemort would still be there. In addition, the things that happened to Sirius and Peter Pettigrew later also show that Dumbledore did not use legilimency, otherwise one would not have had the opportunity to betray James Potter, and the other would not have been imprisoned for more than 10 years because of being wrongly accused. Although Dumbledore's risk was almost zero, Snape was different. Although as a professor of potions, he was also serious and responsible for his students and had a certain bottom line, but when it came to Harry's problem, Snape would not care so much. Who knows if he will use legilimency on you to confirm whether you are a threat because he feels that you are not a good wizard or because he has contact with Harry. After entering Flourish and Blots, he went straight to the area where the teaching books were. Just like the last time Ethan came, a dozen young wizards were buying textbooks here. As the only bookstore in Diagon Alley, it was doing a monopoly business. Intermediate Transfiguration and Advanced Transfiguration Guide were ordered. Standard spells level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 were taken. Ethan's shopping behavior attracted a lot of attention. They had never seen the young wizard buy books like this. Although Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was not very useful, Ethan still took it. Ethan had flipped through the previously purchased Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them and found that it was quite interesting to write by Newt Scamander. The key point was that the price was not expensive. Advanced potion making was 9 gold galleons. Wow, this is the most expensive one at present. Sir, you should be a freshman this year. You can buy these books later. They are not needed now. Maybe in 2 years, when the textbooks are updated, you will have to come back. Seeing that there are more and more books in Ethan's cart, the clerk beside him couldn't help but persuade him. After all, this kind of monopoly bookstore does not get commission for selling books. If the little wizard regrets and comes to return the books, he may have to complain. Thank you for reminding me, but these are all what I need to prepare for the preview. Well, maybe you are a natural Ravenclaw. The clerk also stepped aside and stopped meddling. As long as there is a magic wand, there is a way walking to the magic area. Ethan felt that the title of the book was quite interesting. This person may have a unique insight into magic. Get it? Major Discoveries in Modern Magic, Guide to Medieval Witchcraft, Forgotten Ancient Magic and Joyu, Research on the Development of Modern Witchcraft, The Rise and Fall of Black Magic, List of Contemporary Famous Magicians. These titles are so attractive. They are not clickbait titles. Finally, in a corner, Ethan found his target, On How to Close Your Brain. There are still 6 or 7 copies of this book, but it is already full of dust. It is estimated that no one has touched it for a long time. To be honest, this book is a bit embarrassing. Muggles may not be able to learn it just by reading the book. People with families will not lack this knowledge. If they want to learn, there will be people to teach them, so they will not sell this kind of book. After completing the free mailing service, Ethan had to decide that this money was not spent. Owl mail is 1 sickle per book, but free door-to-door delivery is available for purchases of more than 50 gold galleons, and Ethan enjoyed this service. Because he spent 127 gold galleons, Ethan's small treasury was instantly empty. At Florin's ice cream shop, Ethan sat in the rest area at the door of the shop, scooping ice cream with a spoonful, thinking about how to get some gold galleons. Originally thought that 100 gold galleons would be enough, but it turned out that just buying some books cost more than 100. Hey! A shadow covered his head, and Ethan, who came to his senses, raised his head. It turned out that someone had come to the table opposite his own. Looking around, the rest area that had a few empty seats just now was almost full now. Only Ethan came alone and occupied a whole table, which was the most empty. The little wizard didn't pay attention to Ethan's reaction at all, or simply ignored Ethan, and put the ice cream on the table, then sat down and started to enjoy it. Waist-length golden curly hair, dark green pupils, delicate face, a little familiar, I seem to have seen it in the bookstore just now. After eating the remaining ice cream in 2 bites, Ethan didn't plan to stay any longer. It should be said that the ice cream in Florin's cold drink shop is really delicious, better than the ice cream I have eaten before. Maybe it is made from the milk of some magical animal. After Ethan left, the girl who had a blank expression and was proud just now suddenly turned her head and looked at Ethan. Just now in the bookstore, Ethan's behavior really attracted attention, and she was shopping for textbooks at the side at that time, after hearing the conversation between Ethan and the clerk. The girl also chose the same behavior as Ethan and packed up all the textbooks for the next few years. No, Ethan also only sold some of the textbooks. Chapter 9. Nocturne Alley. On the way from Florin's ice cream shop to the Leaky Cauldron, Ethan accidentally saw a signpost with a bloody hand, facing a gloomy alley. The sign next to it read Nocturne Alley. Standing at the entrance of the alley, Ethan hesitated for only 3 seconds, and then resolutely walked inside. It is not easy to get gold galleons by conventional means, but it is not necessarily the case by unconventional means. After all, making money is written in the criminal law. Anyway, I have the ability to use any magic, as long as it is not seen with my own eyes, it will not be noticed by anyone. With this ability, it is perfect to do things outside the rules. This Nocturne Alley is the black market of the wizarding world, specializing in trading some shady magic items. The situation inside is also mixed. There are people who specialize in making money, and there are also people who can't make it in the wizarding world. Of course, there are also many wanted criminals of the Ministry of Magic. It is still risky for underage wizards to go in, but the 3 unforgivable curses at full level made Ethan ignore these threats. After all, they are hiding in Nocturne Alley, how strong can they be? As Ethan moved forward, the road became more and more gloomy. Unlike the sunny Diagon Alley, it seemed that the sun could not reach here, and everything was shrouded in shadows. Moreover, they are 2 closely connected streets and alleys. Diagon Alley is bustling with people, and there are many wizards coming and going in Nocturne Alley, but they are all dead. Only Ethan is different from them. His face is full of curiosity and excitement after simple dress, and he jumps around in front of each stall. Just like those ignorant little wizards, after hearing the legend of Nocturne Alley, they secretly come here to learn from their parents. These are powerful magic props. With them, you will be invincible in wizard duels. Take a look. The old wizard leaning against the wall, showing his big yellow teeth, promoted his products to Ethan. Ethan looked at the things on the stalls. There were skulls of people or unknown animals, beads and sculptures of unknown meaning, and small bottles of potions without even labels. Obviously, these were not serious things. No, thank you, no, I don't need these. Taking 2 steps back, Ethan waved his hand and hurried forward. Ha! Seeing Ethan hurriedly leave, the old wizard sneered twice and did not try to stop him. Although most of the goods on his stalls were fake, if Ethan was willing to spend money here, he could kindly remind him twice. After all, it was close to the intersection. But now, let him be eaten up by those scum. Come and take a look, the latest wizard novels, The Witch and the Seven Fairies and The Witch and the Werewolf, these are the latest bestsellers, you can't buy them outside. On the stalls full of books, the middle-aged boss with pockmarks on his face recommended his products to the passing wizards with a lingering expression on his face. Seeing the white thighs of the book covers on the stalls shaking constantly, Ethan instantly shifted his gaze and walked forward quickly without looking back, looking like a pure little boy. Just like that, Ethan looked around all the way, as if he was interested in everything, but because of his timidity, he walked in without buying anything. He attracted so many eyes along the way. Lost, right? Do you need me to take you out? Finally, these people lost their patience. 3 wizards wearing dirty wizard robes, exuding a sour smell, and covering their faces with hoods, blocked Ethan in a corner. Not long after Ethan entered Nocturne Alley, they were observing. There were a few groups of people who were also staring at this big fat sheep, but they were driven away by the 3 brothers. Wizards are also a precious resource, and they are quite valuable when sold to those guys doing experiments. Of course, if the little wizard has a lot of gold gallons at home, it is not impossible for his family to redeem him. Thank you, I know the way. Ethan lowered his head and prepared to go around the wizard in front. But obviously they would not let Ethan do what he wanted. One of them put his hand directly on Ethan's shoulder, leaned down and whispered in Ethan's ear, I think you need our help, what do you think? Think about it before you talk. The second hand was on Ethan's shoulder, completely controlling him. With his head lowered, Ethan said in an almost inaudible voice, I need your help. But in this shadow, none of the 3 noticed the smile on Ethan's lips. You want to catch me, and I happen to have the same idea. That's right, follow me, I'll take you out. The first wizard said, grabbing Ethan's sleeve and pulling him deeper into Diagon Alley. In their opinion, this little wizard has been captured. This little wizard, who looked like a second-year student at Hogwarts at most, could cast few clear spells. How could he make any waves? The wizards around were also used to the scene, and they all turned a blind eye to it. After walking about 50 meters, Ethan and the 3 adult wizards stopped. Ethan pulled back his sleeves and asked coldly, where are we going? We are in the base in Nocturne Alley. How many people are there in the base? 1 person stayed behind. Take me there. Chapter 10. Soon, under the guidance of 3 wizards, Ethan came to the bottom of a dilapidated 2-story building. 1 person stepped forward and rhythmically knocked on a mossy brick on the right wall with a magic wand. After the knocking, about half a minute later, a voice came from inside, Dennis, is it you? Well, open the door. The wizard named Dennis stepped forward and replied. This hut has cast several protective spells. For example, this door has cast a protective magic, and it cannot be opened from the outside unless violence is used. And the moment the door is touched from the outside, the wizard inside will receive an alarm, giving the wizard inside the opportunity to use the door key to leave. Only by knocking on the brick correctly and getting different warnings inside, will the guards inside come to confirm the situation and open the door from the inside. Such caution is also because they are not doing any legal business. There are many XXXXX level existences in the smuggling and trafficking of magical animals. There was an accident not long ago, and there is still a wanted order. It is a state of being chased by the Department for the Protection of Magical Creatures at all times. Once caught, a lifetime ticket to Azkaban is inevitable. Did you find a cellar so quickly? The wizard inside was still a little cautious and did not open the door directly. Kipling, open the door, we caught a lamb. Another wizard also stepped forward and said unceremoniously. Here it comes. Now the wizard named Kipling inside no longer doubted it. Catching a lamb means a little wizard, which can fully explain why he came back so quickly. The little wizard is worth at least a few hundred gold galleons, and there is no worry about selling it. It is definitely a hot commodity among dark wizards. It is used to experiment with new potions and spells, which is much more useful than mice or magical animals. To make magic props with cursed properties, magic power and strong negative emotions are needed, so wizards are even more necessary. As the door opened, a middle-aged wizard with a black robe and a big oily head appeared in front of everyone. This is the lamb you caught today. It's good quality. Kipling looked at Ethan with a happy face. This strong little wizard is always more valuable than a thin one. Creak. The black wizard beside Ethan closed the door immediately after everyone entered. By the way, how did you? Avada Kedavra. Kipling hadn't finished speaking when he seemed to hear something he shouldn't have heard, and then his eyes were full of green halos. Before he could react, he fell to the ground silently. Sure enough, you have to shout out to be powerful when you eat a big melon. Ethan took 2 steps forward, ready to see what the situation was of the wizard who died from eating a big melon. Ethan's practice targets before were all mice, and this was the first time he used them on humans. The man's pupils were wide open, his face was full of panic and confusion, and his expression before death was completely frozen on his face. The 3 of them didn't say anything about Ethan killing their companions. After all, from the moment they held Ethan hostage, Ethan secretly cast the Imperious Curse, turning them all into his puppets. It cannot be said that they were not cautious, but they really did not think that a little wizard could pose any threat without taking out his wand. There is another point. The Imperious Curse is the same as the Cruciatus Curse. It is a silent spell that does not bring any special effects during the casting process. After being hit, you will only feel a blank in your mind, all thoughts and responsibilities will disappear, and then you will only feel extremely happy and joyful. In this process, any order of Ethan will be executed, even if they are asked to commit suicide. Of course, this imperious curse can also be resisted. The more it is cast, the higher the resistance. Not to mention whether they have resistance or not, even if they do, it is useless. Ethan's full-level imperious curse is not so easy to resist. All these adjustments gave Ethan the opportunity to attack one by one. When they turned their heads and raised their eyes, they were all hit, and no one was alarmed in the process. What's going on with your base, and what are your identities? Before, when they were outside, Ethan didn't ask too much information. Listening to Dennis's story, Ethan also knew the identity of this group of people. They are all members of the International Magical Animal Smuggling Organization THRES, which has a clear division of labor and members scattered all over the world. A professional team captures magical animals, and then transports them to all parts of the world in boxes cast with the Traceless expansion spell, and finally members like Dennis and his team sell them in various black market taverns and other places. Some time ago, the group responsible for capturing magical animals made a mistake. A collector in America wanted a specimen of the Hesperidian black dragon and commissioned THRES to get a beautiful adult Hesperidian black dragon. This is a big business. After receiving the order, the members responsible for poaching immediately took action and smuggled to the Great British Hesperidian Islands as quickly as possible, but they met Newt's commander in the Hesperidian Islands Reserve. Although the poachers were numerous, they were no match for Newt's commander, especially with a suitcase. Of the dozen fully armed wizards, only 5 escaped, and they were seriously injured, with burns, bites, poisoning and other injuries that were simply horrible to look at. The poachers caught by Newt could not withstand the pressure and confessed during the interrogation of the Ministry of Magic, which also led to the fact that the THRES Magical Animal Smuggling Organization was wanted, not only in Britain, but also in other countries. And Dennis and his team hid in the base deep in Nocturne Alley and behaved like a human being. For such a long time, they could only shrink in Nocturne Alley and sell some small goods. Sporadically. Chapter 11. Following Dennis' instructions, Ethan came to their most important and only property. A small brown suitcase that looked no different from the suitcases in the Muggle world. At Ethan's signal, Dennis and the others opened the suitcase and got into it with Kipling's body. After making sure there were no accidents, Ethan entered. The area was really large. If football fields were used as the unit of measurement, it was about the area of a 3 football fields. It was just a little shabby, with only a small pond, a few large iron cages, a square house made of stone, and the rest was all muddy ground. Under the leadership of Dennis, several people came to the stone house. After seeing the situation inside, Ethan's expression immediately changed. There were all creatures similar to mice inside. They were not big, but each mouse had an anemone-like tumor on its back, which gave people a sense of discomfort, and there were really a lot of mice. At the first glance, Ethan knew what it was. In the book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, there is a magical animal native to Britain, the Murtra rat. The magic part is, XX the tumor on the back of the Murtra rat is also a good thing. After pickling and eating, it can enhance resistance to evil spells and bad luck for a period of time. The level of magical animals is divided into 5 categories according to the magic part. X, it is annoying. XX, harmless or tameable. XX, capable wizards can deal with it. XXXX, dangerous, requires specialized knowledge, and skilled wizards can deal with it. XXXXX, animals known to kill wizards, animals that cannot be domesticated or tamed. Newt, you are FG bullshit, why do you keep so many Murtra rats? Ethan asked with some curiosity. Although the tumor on the back of this thing has some value, the price is not high. Because there are many and they reproduce quickly, you can grab a lot in the place of origin, and the price cannot be raised at all. These Murtra rats will die soon after the tumors on their backs are removed. While they are still alive, they can be used as food for other animals. Some magical animals only eat live food. This is a really good idea. Murtra rats have strong reproductive capacity and are omnivorous. They eat everything. After the tumor on their backs is removed, the tumor can be sold, and the rats that can't survive can be used as feed directly, completing the waste utilization. Leaving the stone house, it is the Murtra rat farm. What you see is a huge iron cage. No, there is one that is different. It looks like a completely enclosed plastic, but it is unknown what material it is made of. There is a pile of black stuff on the ground inside, which looks like randomly discarded garbage. What is this? Ethan found that he didn't recognize this thing. This is a Voldemort, but it's not in good condition. We haven't found a suitable buyer, and we don't know the patroness, so we can only keep it locked up like this. It looks like it's starving to death. Dennis explained in a low voice that they didn't dare to leave Nocturne Alley, so naturally they didn't dare to do business in those wizard taverns. It's impossible to sell this Nocturne Alley Voldemort. Who would dare to take it if they don't know the patroness? Forgive Ethan for his lack of knowledge. Magical animals like Voldemort didn't appear in the movie, and this black thing on the ground doesn't look like a cloak. But it's starving to death, and Ethan can't do anything about it. He doesn't know the patroness and really doesn't dare to open the cage. This is a flying winged demon, but this one is not yet an adult. Dennis took the initiative to introduce Ethan to the next cage. Before the accident, the members of the Fly family were interested in this winged demon, but the price was not agreed upon during the transaction. The winged demon, Ethan knew, was like a combination of a butterfly and a bat. It was blue-green in color and liked to eat brains. Its venom was very dangerous, but it could erase memory after dilution. I have to say that the winged demon looked pretty. This one is not yet an adult, maybe it can be tamed. As for the Ministry of Magic saying that XXXXX level can't be tamed, just take it as a fart. Bring some food for the winged demon. Ethan wanted to feed them himself to see if he could develop some feelings for them. After receiving Ethan's order, Dennis came to the Murtra rat farm, skillfully summoned Murtra rat with the flying spell, and then used the spell to cut off the tumor on its back. The whole process was done in one go. After dealing with more than 10 rats in total, Dennis came to Ethan. He pinched the Murtra rat's tail with disgust and threw them one by one into the cage that held the winged demon. The winged demon, which received the food, grabbed the Murtra rat tightly with a pair of claws, and the next moment bit its head and sucked it. 4 or 5 seconds later, the winged demon threw the Murtra rat out of the cage, staring at the ones floating around Dennis. It eats really fast, Ethan thought as he continued to feed it. The winged demon should be able to shrink into a palm-sized shelled egg, so this cage can't hold it, right? Faced with Ethan's doubts, Dennis patiently explained, it's not the cage that trapped it, but the collar on its neck, which limits its ability to change its magic. Nodding to show that he understood, Ethan was ready to continue reading. I don't know what other surprises are waiting for me. But Dennis told me that the cages in the back were all empty. There were some magical animals such as Billywig, Moonbeast, and Evil Bird. It's just that they have been sold at a low price during this period. Large and rare magical animals are not easy to sell, but for such small and cheap magical animals, there is still a market in Nocturne Alley. Chapter 12. More than 3,700 gold galleons, as expected, all the money earned is written in the criminal law. Among them, only one layer belongs to Dennis and his team, and the rest need to be handed over. However, in the current situation, the entire organization dares not contact each other, let alone hand it over. After all, who knows whether the person who is contacting now is one of their own people, or the Ministry of Magic is stinging and enforcing the law. Putting away the gold galleons, Ethan turned his eyes to the panel. When he used the killing curse and fed the winged demon just now, there was a reminder of the achievement. First blood killing innocent lives, you can't turn back on the dark road, and you can only go to the end achievement goal, kill the wizard, 1/1, achievement reward, a random magic shit shoveler hungry, shit shoveler, where are you? Your master's belly is hungry. Achievement goal, feed magical animals, 1/1, achievement reward, talent animal affinity, also effective for magical animals, this reward is good. If the effect of animal affinity is used well, its power cannot be underestimated. Someone has proved this before. The magic that was drawn was auxiliary, and the functionality was pretty good. Shadow stealth, a magic that had never been heard of in the original book, the specific effect was to sneak into the shadow to avoid enemy attacks, and to move quickly in the shadow. Ethan experimented on the spot. In the light, Ethan turned into a dark shadow on the spot, and could move, but the speed was about the same as his body. However, once he came to the shadow that Ethan turned into could shuttle freely in this shadow, and Ethan was in an imperceptible situation during this process. Although there are limitations, in a sense, it can also be regarded as a life-saving skill. After several experiments, Ethan came to the cage of the winged demon again. The winged demon, which had ignored Ethan after eating, now stared at Ethan with a pair of small eyes and approached Ethan. Intuition told Ethan that this winged demon would not hurt him. Slowly putting his hand into the cage, the winged demon that was waiting there squinted its eyes and rubbed its fancy head on Ethan's palm, revealing an expression of enjoyment. Dennis, open the door. Yes. Having been hit by the soul-taking curse, Dennis completely obeyed Ethan's orders unconditionally, without thinking whether the order was reasonable or not. And at the moment when Dennis opened the cage, a blurry black shadow rushed out instantly. It was too close, and Ethan didn't react at all, and the black shadow stuck to Ethan's face. In the vision of Dennis and the other two, they saw that the winged demon was spreading a pair of wings with spikes on the edges, wrapping Ethan's head tightly. This is the standard posture of the winged demon hunting. It rushes to the head of the prey at an extremely fast speed, and then pierces the skull of the prey with a pair of sharp fangs, while injecting venom and sucking the brain of the prey. But Ethan did not fall down like the prey that were ripped open by the winged demon. Instead, he struggled to grab the winged demon's body with both hands and pulled it out. Snap. After wasting a lot of effort, the winged demon was finally pulled down by Ethan. Ethan was really scared just now, but fortunately the winged demon didn't show its teeth, just hugged him. Maybe this is its way of expressing love, but this way is unacceptable to most people. The winged demon held in his hand was still chirping and trying to get closer to Ethan. After comforting it for a long time, Ethan finally calmed the winged demon and took off the collar from its neck. Now the winged demon has turned into a small chitin ball, and its tail is wrapped around Ethan's arm like a pendant. With this experience, Ethan opened the cage that held the bat. This bat was not as radical as the winged demon. It just rubbed against Ethan's feet, then raised its head and looked at Ethan with two faint lights in its dark and empty head. Ethan remembered that this thing seemed to have been hungry for a long time. He immediately threw the mortar rat whose brain had just been sucked by the winged demon and the wizard's body that Ethan had eaten to death to the Voldemort. In just a moment, both the body of the mortar rat and the wizard's body disappeared, leaving only the Voldemort a little thicker. The Voldemort, as if full, slowly moved its body and climbed up along Ethan's feet until it reached the shoulder, then stopped moving, stretched out its body, and fixed itself. From the perspective of others, Ethan was just wearing a black cloak, but he couldn't open his hood, otherwise he would see a pair of dark eyes in the hood. Dennis, bring the mortar rat feed. Ethan, with the Voldemort behind him and the winged demon hanging on his arm, came to the top of the mortar rat breeding farm, and looked at the mortar rats that were rushing to him one after another, and his scalp was numb. This animal affinity doesn't seem to be all good. Who made the wizarding world have many disgusting magical animals, such as Hagrid's blasting-tailed scroots in the later period? If such things stick to me, I will not be able to live. Without thinking about these goosebumps, Ethan directly dumped the feed brought back by Dennis and others into the mortar rat farm. There are all kinds of things in it, strange pieces of meat and bones, broken shells, corn, potatoes and so on, and even Ethan saw mortar rats cut into several pieces. Just feeding a magical animal, an achievement was brushed out. Now there are hundreds of mortar rats, and brushing another one should not be a problem. For these achievements that can be seen, Ethan always keeps the idea of a brushing them as soon as possible. Don't regret when you are not strong enough at the critical moment. Why didn't you brush more achievements at the beginning, or cram at the last minute, and run to brush them at the last moment? Isn't it here? Master of fantastic beasts flying in the sky, running on the ground, swimming in the water, I have fed everything. Just ask me questions about them. How? No, what do they eat? I know it clearly. Achievement goal, feed enough magical animals, 100/100, achievement reward, magical animal energy cube. Here it comes, but this energy cube makes Ethan feel like he has seen a little idiot. After accepting the reward, Ethan found that this so-called energy cube is a magic potion. And this energy cube is not a fixed formula, but a large piece of knowledge, as if several books were stuffed into Ethan's brain. Energy cubes made of different materials are suitable for various magical animals of different ages. The main function is to promote development and improve strength and potential. Chapter 13. Now the achievement has been cleared, the gold galleons have been earned, and 2 magical animals have been picked up. But what about these 3 wizards and these murder rats? The Imperious Curse cannot last forever. If you want to control them for a long time, you must reapply it at intervals. Otherwise, when the magic effect disappears, they will regain consciousness. Ethan will go to Hogwarts in a month, and he definitely doesn't want to take them and these murder rats with him. Kill them? Let's see what their reaction will be after they wake up. But first, we have to confiscate their wands and some magic props. Waving his hand, Ethan lifted the Imperious Curse on several people. The few people who suddenly woke up were still a little at a loss, but the moment they saw Ethan, they took 2 steps back as if they saw a ghost, with horror on their faces. Before Ethan could say anything, Dennis and the other 2 knelt down on the ground in tacit understanding and begged Ethan to let them go. The memory of the period of time under the Imperious Curse has not been erased. Whether it is the silent use of the Imperious Curse to control the 3 of them, or the wandless spell to kill Kipling, these operations are simply not dared to dream of themselves. But all this was done by a little wizard. Later, he tamed the Voldemort and the winged demon. What can they use to fight? Even if they want to fight, they must have a wand. Now the wand has been confiscated. In addition to kneeling and begging, they can't think of any other way to survive. As for revenge for Spring, everyone is a dark wizard, can you not be so naive? In this case, you will follow me in the future. After a little thought, Ethan said so. It should be an achievement to have little brothers, although they will not really submit to themselves, and they will most likely run away as soon as they are out of danger. Yes, I am willing. From now on, my lord, I will be your loyal servant. As Dennis and the other 2 knelt and crawled in front of Ethan, and were about to kiss Ethan's shoes to show complete obedience. He also mentioned the names of the 3 and the magic they were good at. Dennis Gar, Berkeley Andrew, and Don Jeff, their magic skills were average, a little bit better than normal adult wizards. They knew the 3 unforgivable spells, and the most used one was the killing curse. They were not proficient in the remaining 2, just to the extent of knowing them. They had some knowledge of other dark magics and knew the conventional spells. Unlike Ethan's idea, Dennis and the other 2 thought that it was actually not bad to follow Ethan. Although he was young, he was strong. In this era when Voldemort died and Dumbledore was old, Ethan was simply a legend of the next era, and this time would not be too long. It was really an honor for me and others to be able to follow such a wizard, and I might even have a record of myself in the history of magic. Faced with the actions of the 3, Ethan did not refuse. Foundation: a little bit of sand makes a tower. You have finally taken the first step, no longer choosing to fight alone. Achievement goal: have a subordinate, 1/1, achievement reward, magic mark of the demon. This is the first time I have seen a designated magic reward instead of a random one. As Ethan absorbed and understood the information, he finally understood what this magic was about. Another auxiliary magic. Mark of the demon: plant a magic mark on the target. This mark cannot be erased. The marks can sense each other and can sense the exact location of all reporters with the black star mark, and summon them to complete the gathering according to the guidance of the mark. This looks like a replica of Voldemort's dark mark, and the functions are similar. Raise your head. Yes. Facing Ethan's order, Dennis did not dare to neglect it. But the next second, Dennis's face changed suddenly, and he saw an extra long magic wand pointing at his head. He still wants to kill me? This was Dennis' first reaction. But he soon gave up the idea, because the other party didn't need a magic wand to kill him. Before he could figure out the meaning of Ethan's move, he felt a gloomy and cold magic flow into his body along his forehead, and mixed with the magic in his body until it stopped at the chest. For the other 2, Ethan did the same. This magic is called the Mark of the Henchman. No matter where you are, I can find you based on this magic and activate it to guide you to reunite. After doing all this, Ethan explained to the 3 people. Master, we will never betray you. Yes, Master, we are sincere. Stop, don't call me Master, just call me Boss. Ethan interrupted the 3 people's loyalty. The Master is exactly Voldemort's de copyright JAVU. Originally, this so-called Mark of the Henchman was like Voldemort's dark mark. If they were allowed to call themselves Master and were good at using dark magic, especially the unforgivable curse, at this stage when Voldemort has not yet resurrected, it might give people the idea that Ethan is Voldemort's reincarnation. Then Ethan began to ask the 3 people about their next plans and how to deal with their poaching organization. Accepting 3 younger brothers is to assign tasks to them, not to clean up their asses. If their so-called poaching organization recovers and starts to investigate, Ethan is not afraid, but it will be a bit troublesome. However, the 3 have already thought about it. They put all the blame on Kipling. It was Kipling who ran away with all the magical creatures and gold galleons when the 3 went out to find buyers. There is no evidence, and now the entire organization is out of contact. They are sure that the problem is not only in Britain, but also in other places. It is impossible to deal with such a problem in the end, so it can only be left unresolved. They asked Ethan if he needed to quit the organization, but Ethan said no. There is almost 1 month before school starts, and there is nothing to arrange for them to do. It is better to let them stay in the organization. Maybe they will be useful in the future. The main point is to let them go. After everything was arranged, Ethan took out more than 230 gold galleons and left them. As for the remaining 3,500, of course, they were his spoils. Ethan left the mortar rat in the box with the traceless expansion spell to them, but took away a spare empty box. The space inside the spare box was smaller and empty, but it was enough. When he walked out of the 2-story house, it was already dark. Shadow stealth started. In the shadow of the building, Ethan moved quickly. In just 20 to 30 seconds, Ethan ran out of Nocturne Alley until he found an empty corner in Diagon Alley. Ethan then lifted the magic. When Ethan came out of the leaky cauldron, the driver outside had been waiting anxiously. He had said that he would come out in 2 or 3 hours at most. As a result, it has been more than 5 hours since Ethan went in. Chapter 14. September 1st. In the parking lot of King's Cross Station, Ethan was saying goodbye to his parents with a suitcase. This suitcase was just a cover, with some clothes and a box cast with the traceless stretching spell. The box contained a lot of books, as well as potion materials collected during this period, and miscellaneous items such as the fire dragon brain frozen with the freezing spell and the corpse of the mortar rat. The winged demon and the Voldibot were also carried with him. The winged demon was relatively easy to deal with, just turn it into a ball and put it in Ethan's pocket. This was its dormant form, which existed for camouflage and reduced consumption. It completely lacked the predatory aura that belonged to dangerous magical animals. As long as it was not exposed, outsiders would not know that Ethan had such a thing in his pocket. The fire dragon brain was prepared for it. Under normal circumstances, the winged demon only eats fresh brains of live food, but the fire dragon brain is an exception. It eats this thing very happily even if it is frozen. Moreover, dragon brain is not expensive, cheaper than dragon liver at 16 sickles per ounce. Although this thing contains magic power, it has not been found to have any effect in potions, and the entire wizarding world does not eat brains very much. Voldemort is in trouble. Although this thing looks like a cloak, any wizard with a little knowledge can see what it is. In addition, its notoriety makes it the kind that cannot be exposed at Hogwarts. For this reason, Ethan also specially made a platinum pendant, which is hollow at the bottom. Ethan cast the traceless extension spell on it. Due to its small size, it took a long time to succeed. The space inside is only the size of a room, but it is enough for Voldemort. This extremely small traceless extension spell item is impossible for people to enter, because the entrance is too small, but it is just right for Voldemort. With this traceless extension necklace as a cover, Voldemort can also be carried by Ethan. Moreover, in the past month, Ethan has become more and more familiar with the Voldemort. He can control it as a cloak as he wants, as long as the Voldemort cooperates. With one action, the Voldemort automatically puts a hood on Ethan, making Ethan's entire face shrouded in a layer of black mist, but it does not affect his vision, which can perfectly hide all of Ethan's images. Not only that, this Voldemort cloak also has super strong magic resistance, especially for black magic. It can automatically resist some upcoming spells for Ethan. It is definitely the best auxiliary prop. Only the Voldemort is almost untamable, otherwise the Voldemort cloak is definitely a popular existence in the wizarding world. In terms of magic, Ethan is not idle either, especially the brain occlusion is the focus. Of course, this improvement is also obvious. Name, Ethan Adrian age, 11 bloodline, wizard talents, super soul, a more powerful soul brings higher learning efficiency and casting speed. Strong body, improve physical fitness and adaptability to magic through exercise. Heart of darkness, improve black magic talent, use black magic without any emotional assistance. Focus, greatly improve learning efficiency. Animal affinity, also effective for magical animals. Spells, killing curse, 10, cruciatus curse, 10, imperious curse, 10, occlumency, 6, armor curse, 4, traceless extension curse, 4, siphon energy, 4, shadow walk, 3, mark of the demon, 2, transfiguration, 2, petrification curse, 3, disillusionment curse, 3, flying curse, 3, levitation curse, 2, illumination curse, 2, shrinking curse, 2, flame curse, 2. Walking into the station, Ethan followed the sign to the direction of platform 9. But as Ethan walked in, he found that the people around him were wearing more and more strange clothes. Wearing a cotton jacket on top and shorts on the bottom, this kind of explosive outfit is not an exception. There are also big men with full beards on their faces, but they wear long skirts and high heels. It's like this every day, you get used to it. Not only will there be children running to ask where platform 9 and 3/4 is, but there are also these guys wearing strange clothes. Is there anything special today? I don't know, does the first day of school count? Listening to the conversation between two station staff members, Ethan rushed over and bumped into a pillar next to them, but the two staff members seemed not to see it and continued to talk about the topic just now. A feeling of squeezing came, and then the vision was widened, but what did he bump into? Ah! Looking at the sound, I saw a little girl lying on a pile of gifts. Why is this girl blocking the door? But she still bumped into someone, and Ethan quickly helped her up. He also helped her luggage up. But this guy looks familiar. Big front teeth, it's you. The iconic big front teeth and thick and messy brown hair, Hermione. I have met her once before, so I know her. It turns out that the person who asked the staff where the 9 and 3/4 station is just now is her. Hermione, who also recognized Ethan, was about to say hello, but when she heard the 3 words big front teeth, her face immediately turned black. This name reminded her of some bad memories. Thank you. After thanking her, Hermione held her luggage and walked forward, not wanting to say anything extra. You still remember this? Ethan shook his head and sighed. It has been about 3 years since the multi-school summer camp. Hermione and Ethan were both there. In the evening activity competition, Hermione was the best until Ethan came on stage. Whether it was memory or logic, these areas Hermione was good at were crushed. At the end, Ethan's words, don't be sad, at least your front teeth are bigger than mine. The little girl couldn't hold it back at all and cried in front of everyone. But remember it. Ethan, who looked like he didn't care, didn't bother to worry about it, and got on the red steam train with his suitcase. Because they came late, many of the carriages they passed were full. This can't be blamed on Ethan, after all, wizards came directly here with magic, and Ethan had to take a car to travel dozens of kilometers in the morning to get there. After walking all the way to the back half, I found a relatively empty compartment with only a little witch inside. Excuse me, can I sit in? The little witch who was reading a book in the compartment looked up and lowered her head again. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your consent. After opening the compartment door, Ethan went in directly, put the suitcase on the shelf, and sat down opposite her. Only then did he realize that this person was the one who sat opposite him when he had ice cream at Floren's ice cream shop last time. Chapter 15. Can we sit in here? The door was opened again, and Hermione appeared again, with thick and unkempt brown hair and big front teeth, followed by a round-faced fat boy, who looked a little timid and uneasy. Cassandra didn't even raise her head this time, looking like she didn't care. Ethan could only nod and invite them in. Although the little witch opposite entered the carriage first, according to the rules, anyone has the right to sit in the carriage, and the carriage does not belong to an individual. Looking at Ethan in the carriage, Hermione was a little embarrassed, because the meeting just now was not pleasant. But the words were already said, so she could only come in, put away the gifts. Neville sat down next to Ethan, and Hermione sat next to the little witch. Hermione's acquaintance with Neville was also a coincidence. When she asked the staff at the station about platform 9 3/4 and was told that there was no platform, she was a little at a loss. Fortunately, Neville's grandmother brought her in. After entering the platform, Neville was pulled aside by his grandmother to talk about something, while Hermione was still condemning Hogwarts' irresponsibility towards Muggle students at the entrance. After all, who would know how to enter without someone leading the way? But before Hermione left, she was bumped by Ethan, who came from behind. Hermione, who was in a bad mood, walked forward with her luggage and met Neville, who was also saying goodbye to his grandmother. The two found this carriage together. If they had known earlier, they would have walked to the back. The atmosphere was really awkward. Ethan, the little witch and Hermione were all looking at the magic books in their hands. Only Neville sat timidly aside to reduce his presence. There was no communication throughout the whole process. Neville already regretted following Hermione into this carriage. Even if there were no seats, it would be better to sit on the suitcase in the corridor than to enter this carriage. Your scabby ran out. The quiet of the carriage was broken by Ethan. What? Neville turned around and looked at Ethan in a daze, a little at a loss. Even the two little witches opposite raised their heads and looked at Ethan. What the hell was he talking about just now? Your toad ran out. Okay. He spoke in dialect in excitement. Ethan took a deep breath, pointed under the table, and repeated it again in words they could understand. Just now, Ethan, who was reading a book, felt something on his shoes. He looked down and found that it was a toad. He felt bad immediately. Sure enough, his animal affinity attracted some bad things. And this thing has a tendency to jump onto Ethan's legs. If he didn't know that this was Neville's pet, Ethan would have kicked it directly. Ah, Lefou! Neville shouted in surprise and lowered his head to check the situation. After seeing Lefou squatting on Ethan's feet, Neville immediately leaned down and grabbed him. The toad in Neville's hand was still struggling, desperately wanting Neville's palm. There was no way, Neville could only slam it into his pocket and cover it tightly. Ethan could clearly see the curiosity in Hermione's eyes and the contempt of another little witch. Why did you bring a toad? Is this popular in the wizarding world? Hermione finally asked. She wanted to know something about the wizarding world. At present, she only knew about it from books. No, this is not popular in the wizarding world. He is just an exception. The little witch next to Hermione put down the book to justify the wizarding world. It has always been only wizards who despise muggles, and this fool cannot be allowed to tarnish the reputation of pure-blood wizards. She had long recognized who this little fat man was. Among the pure-blood families, Neville's reputation was not small, although it was not positive. Sorry, Lefou is a gift from my uncle when I was 8 years old. Neville recounted his legendary experience, which was the difficult history of awakening magic. He almost died several times, but he succeeded in the end and received the reward of Lefou, the scabby bauble. Hermione was stunned when she heard this. She didn't expect the wizard world to be so wild. Are you sure your uncle gave you a toad because he was happy, not because of other emotions? Ethan was a little curious about this. Although this thing is called a toad in Great Britain, toads are not a good choice as pets. Hogwarts can bring owls, toads, and mice to school, but the main function of toads is that part of their body can be used as medicine, and mice are experimental products for spells and potions. Only a very small number of people really keep them as pets, and the reason why they can bring them is because they are not dangerous. The reason why the Weasley family uses mice as pets is because they are poor and can't afford other pets. If they can afford owls, do you think they want mice? Just like Percy, after becoming a prefect, she was rewarded with an owl and gave the mouse to Ronald on the spot. The Weasley family is poor, but the Longbottom family is not. From the memory ball that Neville's grandmother sent him, it can be seen that this is definitely an expensive alchemical product, and it may even be customized for Neville. I think so. I have been stupid since I was a child. Maybe I will be sent back by Hogwarts this time. Neville fell into an emo state. He always felt very inferior and thought that he had no talent at all. Maybe none of the 4 colleges would want him. Hermione looked at Ethan speechlessly, as if to say, look at what you have done. And the other little wizard scratched his hair on his forehead. The glory of the pure-blood wizard was about to be defeated by him. Since you have received the admission notice, you will not be sent back. Ethan still comforted him. Of course, this is also the truth. If Neville had not been hit by the forgetfulness spell, he would definitely be an extremely excellent wizard, or the prophecy of the savior, not just Harry alone, but a prophecy for 2 people. Without Neville's sword that killed Nagini at the critical moment, Harry would not have won the final victory. It can be said that both of them are indispensable. Really? Neville perked up a little. Of course, have you ever heard of anyone who failed to enroll after receiving an admission letter? Ethan shrugged and said undeniably. The only person Ethan knew who was expelled from Hogwarts was a squib. He did not receive an admission letter, but broke into Hogwarts on the enrollment day and snatched the sorting hat of other young wizards, but was told by the sorting hat that he had no magical talent and could not become a student of Hogwarts. Neville Longbottom. Facing Ethan, Neville solemnly said his name. Over the years, all the other peers he had come into contact with laughed at and despised him, and only a few could give him kind words of comfort. Ethan, Adrian. Ethan also reacted. Hermione Granger. Hermione also said with a smile. Cassandra Wallace, the pride of Slytherin in the future. Cassandra raised her head proudly and swore. Are you a senior from Slytherin? Hermione asked hesitantly. She had always thought that everyone present was of the same age, and based on the knowledge she had learned from wizard books this summer, she did not like Slytherin. No, I am also a freshman this year, but I will definitely go to Slytherin. Cassandra was very sure of this. It turned out to be her. The character in the game, but the era seemed a little wrong. Chapter 16. You were born in a wizard family, so you should have been exposed to magic since childhood. Can you show me how to perform it? Hermione was both looking forward to and afraid of the life in Hogwarts. She has been an excellent student since childhood and has never had any problems in her studies, which has cultivated her strong competitive spirit. The only time she was defeated was at the hands of Ethan. Now Hermione has worked hard to study during this period, and I believe that if she competes again, she will definitely not be worse than Ethan. But in magic, Hermione has no confidence. It is still difficult to learn magic by herself without anyone teaching. In one summer vacation, Hermione only learned 3 spells, namely the illumination spell, the unlocking spell, and the repairing spell. For this reason, she was very worried that she would not be able to keep up with the teaching progress of Hogwarts and be left far behind by those children who grew up in wizard families and become a so-called poor student. Now, since she has the opportunity, she wants to see what level the children who grew up in wizard families are at, so as to make plans for her future study career. This. Neville stuttered and couldn't speak, not knowing how to answer. He had seen magic and saw it every day, but he really couldn't perform it. Puff. Ethan couldn't help laughing out loud. Hermione followed closely, and Neville was so timid that he couldn't say a word. What are you laughing at? Nothing to laugh at. Ethan spread his hands and put on an innocent look. I'll show you what magic is. Cassandra stood up, although she didn't think much of Neville, and even less of Hermione, a muggle-born wizard, and didn't even want to communicate too much. But in the final analysis, Cassandra was still an 11-year-old child, and it was a common problem to flaunt and show off her strengths to attract the attention of others. Under the gaze of Ethan and the other two, Cassandra elegantly drew out her wand and pointed it in the air. Flames. As the voice fell, the hot orange-red flame gushed out from the tip of the wand, forming a tiny vortex in the air that lasted for a long time. After doing all this, Cassandra looked in the direction of Ethan with some pride. In her opinion, only Ethan could make her take a second look. Ethan should be born of a half-blood wizard. After all, she knew all the pure-blood wizard families in Great Britain. She had never heard of the surname Adrian. In addition, the last time Ethan bought books, he spent more than 100 gold galleons at a time, which did not conform to the characteristics of a muggle family. Eliminating all wrong answers, there is only one result. This is the fire spell. I have tried it many times but it didn't work. Hermione stood up suddenly, staring at Cassandra's fire spell. Sure enough, the students of the wizard family have far surpassed me in progress. Ignoring the excited Hermione, Cassandra still stared at Ethan and said seriously, what magic have you learned during this time? It was because of Ethan that she bought extra textbooks for senior grades and studied hard during this period of time, just to surpass Ethan and become the brightest star in Slytherin and even Hogwarts. I just don't know how talented Ethan is. His diligence and hard work can make her pay a little attention, but if he is not talented, he is not qualified to be her opponent at all. Flame. The same magic came out from Ethan's hands, and even the size of the vortex of flame was the same as Cassandra's. Although Ethan did not study the fire spell in depth during this period, can't he learn it just by looking at it? Coupled with good magic control ability and more powerful magic than ordinary little wizards, Ethan can easily reach this step. Even if the proficiency of the fire spell may not be as high as Cassandra, it can achieve the same effect. Ethan, you can do it too. Hermione widened her eyes, feeling a little incredible. Although she lost to Ethan before, now it is magic, which is a brand new track. She didn't expect that she would lose again. Cassandra's mouth curled up slightly. Only this way is interesting. If Ethan is a mediocre person with no talent, it would be really boring. Immediately, Cassandra swung the magic wand in her hand, and the flame in the air seemed to come alive halfway, turning into a fire snake and rushing towards Ethan, as if to swallow Ethan's flame in one gulp. She wanted to tell Ethan in this way that she was the best one. But reality is often cruel. The moment the two fire spells came into contact, Cassandra's began to collapse. Because they were in the carriage, neither of them dared to expand the fire. In the end, Cassandra could only watch Ethan's flames come to about 30 centimeters in front of her before dissipating. Although the form of expression is flame, it still relies on magic. Now there is no burning material, and it is not the immortal flame born in the destructive mood of the fiery spell. The final competition is still the operation of the fire spell and magic. Ethan, we are both born as muggles and have never been exposed to magic before. How did you do it? It's not shameful to ask if you don't understand. Hermione can only admit that she can't compare to Ethan in both the wizarding world and the muggle world. We are geniuses, that's it. Ethan said with a face that deserves K. You must have some learning skills, teach me, please. In order not to be a bad student and to graduate from Hogwarts smoothly, Hermione decided to go all out. It's also a genius to pick the muggle world by yourself. Why can't you do it? Hermione can only tell herself that it's just that no one teaches, and she can't master the learning method of wizards. Wait, you said he was born as a muggle. Cassandra interrupted the conversation between the two and looked at Ethan with some doubt. Yes, I know him. Hermione nodded affirmatively. I lost this competition, but the situation here is not right. I will definitely win next time. As the pride of the family and a genius in other people's mouths, Cassandra does not think that she is inferior to Ethan. If she can let go of the competition, the victory will definitely be hers. Chapter 17. Under Hermione's entanglement, Ethan talked about some tricks of performing magic, such as the gestures of waving the wand when chanting spells, how to control the output of magic power, etc. Neville would talk about some things in the wizarding world from time to time, and Ethan and Hermione also had some things they wanted to ask Neville, a local resident of the wizarding world. Cassandra on the side didn't say a word, but still held a book and read it, but from the book that hadn't turned the pages for a long time, it can be seen that her attention was not on the book at the moment. The atmosphere in the car was also getting better. At lunchtime, everyone took out their lunch boxes and bought some food from the salesperson. Everyone was not short of money, and even Hermione still had some gold galleons. Time passed in the idle chat of several people until it got dark. It was just such a short distance, and after sitting in the car for a day, Ethan couldn't chat anymore, and he was a little sleepy looking at the scenery outside the window. It seems that there is a quarrel next door. After a shrill scream, well, the fight has started now. Do you want to go and see? Ethan instantly perked up. It's human nature to watch the fun. It's better not to go, so as not to cause trouble. What's the trouble? Ethan said as he walked out of the workshop. If he didn't go to see the fun, what's the point of such a life? Cassandra followed Ethan out of the carriage door without saying a word. Hermione followed after a little hesitation. I won't go. Neville sat there motionless. Years of experience told him that he shouldn't go to see the fun, otherwise he might become the fun. When he came to the door of the carriage at the back, he saw 5 people inside, presenting a tense atmosphere. The scream came from a child who looked sorry for the audience but was quite strong. At this moment, a mouse was hanging on his finger, and its sharp teeth were deeply tightened in his flesh. The child was screaming and waving his hands constantly, trying to shake the mouse off. Except for the unlucky guy who was bitten by a rat, the other people were attracted by Ethan's arrival. Who are you? Get out. The platinum-haired boy with a pale face like a kidney deficiency yelled at Ethan and others who came in from outside. He came here to make friends, but was humiliated and now suffered a loss. He didn't want others to see it. His father is the school director, so what's wrong with him being arrogant? Until he saw Cassandra coming in after Ethan, Draco immediately changed his words. Vor, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other two. At the Pure Blood banquet, the two had met, more than once, but it was inevitable that the arrogant Draco would have a dispute with the arrogant Cassandra. When they didn't know magic, Draco was beaten, because girls grow up quickly. At the Pure Blood gathering in August this year, Draco wanted to use the magic he had just learned to get back the place, but he was beaten even more miserably. What's more, although Cassandra's family is not one of the 28 clans, it is also a noble Pure Blood, no worse than his own family. His father is a school director, and his father is a senior official in the Ministry of Magic. He can't suppress the other party in terms of family background, and he can't beat him, which leads to his lack of confidence when facing Cassandra. Draco Malfoy, no matter where you are, you can always cause trouble. Cassandra looked at Malfoy with disdain. He always shows off with his 2 followers, but they are just 3 pieces of trash composed of a trash plus 2 trash. Draco couldn't say a word. He really made a fool of himself again. Ethan, you also come to Hogwarts to study. Unlike Draco who was ashamed and angry, Harry seemed quite happy when he saw Ethan. Although the relationship between the two could not be said to be very good, they were classmates for 2 years. Moreover, during the 2 years when he was a classmate of Ethan, Daly did not dare to come to the classroom to bully him. In this strange magical world, it is really great to meet acquaintances. Well, I am also a freshman at Hogwarts this year. Who is next to you? This is Ronald Weasley, a friend I just met, a child from a wizard family. Harry introduced his new friend readily. Enough. A mudblood from a muggle family, Crab, teach him a lesson. Draco was rejected by Harry for making friends, just ridiculed by Cassandra, and now ignored by muggle wizards. Draco completely exploded. Harry is the savior of the wizarding world and a celebrity. Cassandra can't afford to offend him. Even the stupid red-haired man is a member of the Weasley family and has Dumbledore's back. Although she looks down on them, she can't let herself control them. But what does this mudblood have? He has nothing. Bang. Quickly imprison. Everything happened too fast. Draco only saw Crab fall to the ground after being hit on the chin by a punch as soon as he stepped forward. Then the mudblood pulled out Crab's wand and pointed it at himself and Goyle. Ridiculous, can you use other people's wands? But Draco suddenly found that he couldn't laugh anymore. Not only that, his whole body couldn't move. You should be thankful that this is the train to Hogwarts, and you are also a freshman at Hogwarts. Ethan came to Malfoy and patted his face, lowered his head and whispered in his ear. Then, he looked in the direction of Harry. They were looking for trouble with you just now, right? Now the 3 of them are handed over to you. You can deal with them as you like. They can't move. Leave it to me. I will treat them well. And what kind of magic did you just use? It's so cool. Ronald kicked Draco and said excitedly. Since his father's generation, he has been at odds with the Malfoy family. Now Draco is blessed to fall into his hands. And the magic just now, if I can learn it, it would be great. Compared with that, what my 2 brothers taught me was just a bunch of nonsense, which made me look bad in front of Harry. The imprisonment spell is in the textbook, didn't you read it? Hearing this, Harry and Ronald looked at each other and shook their heads together. Should we read textbooks during the holidays? The 2 who got the answer from each other quickly put this question behind them and started beating the Malfoy trio. Under Harry's guidance, Ronald knew where to hit more painfully, and it would not be discovered. This is all blood experience. The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train and we will help you get to school. The announcement of the upcoming station began to echo on the train. The station is almost here. Ethan waved the wand in his hand, touching the imprisonment spell of the Malfoy trio, and then put the wand in Crab's pocket intimately. After all, the wand is innocent. The liberated Malfoy trio didn't dare to say a word, and trotted out in shame. After a few more pleasantries, Ethan led his men to retreat. After all, they had to go back to the carriage to change into wizard robes. On the way back to the carriage, Hermione kept complaining that she shouldn't have come, and that she had caused trouble before entering Hogwarts. Cassandra looked at Ethan's back without saying a word, and was still thinking about how she would solve the problem if she put herself in Ethan's position just now. It's not difficult to hammer those 3 pieces of trash, but it won't be that fast. Although I know the imprisonment spell, can I release it so efficiently in the first time with someone else's wand? Chapter 18. The train slowed down and stopped with a whistle. The little wizards pushed and shoved towards the side door and came to a small dark platform. Ethan, who had just got off the train, felt a chill. The Scottish Highlands in September had already entered autumn, and the night temperature had already dropped to single digits. Keep warm. He quickly cast a warming spell on himself, and Ethan felt a little more comfortable. The warming spell, a practical little magic, has the effect of keeping warm as its name suggests. It seems to be in the 3rd grade textbook. Keep warm. Naturally, he would not forget Hermione and others, and Ethan cast one for them in turn. Thank you. After Cassandra whispered a thank you, she separated from Ethan and his group and went in another direction. Like Draco, she also has her own pure-blood friends, or it is more reliable to say that followers. But today, in order to enjoy a compartment alone, she did not stay with them. Unfortunately, she didn't get her wish. She didn't get a private compartment. Instead, she had to listen to the chattering for hours in a full box. It felt good. Now that she got off the train, she naturally had to return to the pure-blood camp. She was the pride of the future Slytherin. First year students, come over here, and watch your feet. A giant over 3 meters tall, wide, and fat, came over with an oil lamp. Although he looked honest, he still scared many freshmen back. Giant human hybrid, Hagrid. Ethan was curious about how his parents did it. Pure-blooded giants were taller than Hagrid, at least 4 meters tall, while normal human men were about 1.78 meters tall. His father seemed particularly thin. A small horse pulling a big cart? A toothpick stirring a big vat? Tisk tisk tisk. The old students went to the other half, and the freshmen followed Hagrid. This road is not easy to walk. The path is narrow, steep, and slippery. It is pitch black on both sides. Only the light from Hagrid's lantern in front leads the way. At the end of the path is a dark lake, and on the hillside on the opposite bank stands a towering castle with sharp spires and windows flickering under the starry sky. Each boat cannot have more than 4 people. Ethan, Hermione, Neville, and an unknown little witch got on the same boat. Hannah Abbott, after introducing herself, I know that this is the famous Iron Hat King. However, as they get closer to the castle in front, Hermione and Neville feel more and more depressed. Hermione is so nervous that her palms are sweating. I wonder if I can be assigned to Gryffindor. Thanks to Dumbledore's influence and the publicity of a number of wizard novel magazines, wizards who don't know the situation all regard Gryffindor as the greatest college. The same is true for Hermione. However, she had no idea whether she could enter Gryffindor. My grandmother wants me to go to Gryffindor. My whole family is Gryffindor, but I don't know if I can get in. Neville was also quite discouraged. Courage, he didn't seem to have much to do with this word. If he could get into Hufflepuff, it would be great, but his grandmother expected him to get into Gryffindor. As for me, I want to go to Hufflepuff. Hannah Abbott smiled easily. Although her family hadn't told her what the sorting ceremony was like, they said that she would most likely go to Hufflepuff. The reason for choosing Hufflepuff was also very simple. First of all, most of her family members were Hufflepuffs. She grew up listening to Hufflepuff stories since she was a child, and she had already taken over the family tavern in the future. The Hufflepuff dormitory was closest to the kitchen and had the best relationship with the house elves. She could also learn a few tricks to add 2 specialties to the tavern in the future. Ethan, what about you? The 3 of them said their goals, only Ethan remained silent. Hermione asked curiously. As a fellow from the Muggle world, and a more talented guy than her, she wanted to hear Ethan's choice. Except for Slytherin, which cannot be admitted due to bloodline, the other 3 houses are all fine, and each has its own characteristics. Slytherin is generally for pure blood, and some half-bloods with good talents and ambitions can also enter, but those born in a completely Muggle family seem to be unable to enter. Of the remaining 3, Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff are both good choices. To be honest, I don't really want to enter Gryffindor. They are noisy and not as united as Hufflepuff, and the atmosphere is even worse than Hufflepuff. Ravenclaw can learn better, and they have their own exclusive library. As we all know, since Voldemort, the library of Hogwarts has been collected by Dumbledore. Now it is a broken version of the library. Ravenclaw believes in wisdom and has a greedy and predatory nature for knowledge. Their exclusive library will not let Dumbledore mess around. You're saying nothing. Hermione was helpless in the face of Ethan's answer. As for you, Ravenclaw is actually the most suitable for you. Extraordinary wisdom is the greatest wealth of mankind. This is their slogan. Ethan tried to change the plot. To be honest, it was normal for Hermione to go to Gryffindor and be the target of exclusion before she became friends with Harry and Ronald. In a school where people like pranks, wizard chess, Quidditch, etc., but don't like to study, suddenly a good student came, and she likes to preach. Who would play with her? Especially this good student doesn't give us homework to copy, which is even more repulsive. I've thought about Ravenclaw, but I still think Gryffindor is better. Hermione still insisted on her point of view. The greatest wizards come from Gryffindor, so Gryffindor is naturally the best. This is similar to the Muggle world. If the school has enough celebrities and is famous enough, it can prove that the school is getting better and better. As they chatted, the boat passed the steep cliffs to the west and the curtains of ivy, and finally stopped at a pier. After landing, the people climbed through a tunnel in the rock and arrived at an open and wet meadow under the shadow of the towering castle. After Hagrid counted the number of people, he stepped onto a stone staircase, raised his huge fist and knocked 3 times on the castle gate. The gate opened immediately, and Professor McGonagall, who had met before, walked out slowly. Here are the first-year students, Professor McGonagall. Hagrid said seriously. Thank you, Hagrid, I will take over next. Professor McGonagall politely returned to the camp, and then led the young wizards into the 1000-year-old castle of Hogwarts. Chapter 19. Following Professor McGonagall, everyone came to a small empty house, rubbing shoulders with each other, staring at everything around nervously. The sorting was about to start, and most people were not in a relaxed mood. Welcome to Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall looked at everyone and said seriously, the opening banquet is about to begin, but before you go to the auditorium and take your seats, you must first confirm which college you will enter. In a few minutes, the sorting ceremony will be held in front of all the teachers and students of the school. When it is ready, I will come to pick you up. During this period, Please keep quiet. After speaking, Professor McGonagall walked towards the direction of the auditorium. Until she left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. After all, Professor McGonagall's serious face put a lot of pressure on everyone. How can they accurately sort us into which college? Ethan heard that this was Harry's voice. Maybe we need to pass some kind of test. I heard from my brother that this test is very harmful to our bodies. Ronald showed off in front of Harry again. It's just that his memory is not very good. The twins have deceived him countless times, but Ronald still believes the twins' lies. With Harry and Ronald taking the lead, the urgency of the crowd was raised. One by one, they began to talk about the gossip they knew. Some said they would duel with trolls, and some said they would perform magic on the spot. There was also a group of purebloods who firmly believed that as long as they had noble blood and excellent talents, they would definitely be assigned to Slytherin. What is that? A panicked voice that overwhelmed the whole audience sounded, attracting everyone's attention. The scene immediately became silent, and no one dared to act rashly. They saw more than 20 pearly white, translucent ghosts suddenly jumped out of the wall. Ethan watched the ghosts' every move. He had been to Diagon Alley and Nocturne Alley many times during this period, but he had never seen a ghost once. This time he had a chance, so Ethan naturally had to observe carefully. I just don't know what the difference is between Voldemort's current state and these ghosts, or whether the method of making Horcruxes refers to the birth of ghosts. The only thing that can be confirmed is that these ghosts have no entity, but I don't know whether they can use magic. Facing Dementors, which are also considered as magical animals without entity, which side is more powerful? Can ordinary spells or dark magic work on these ghosts? The more Ethan thought about it, the more he wanted to get a ghost to do experiments. Move forward now. A sharp voice sounded, the sorting ceremony is about to begin. With the arrival of Professor McGonagall, these ghosts disappeared through the opposite wall. After organizing the formation, a group of young wizards followed Professor McGonagall out of the room, through the entrance hall, and then through a double door into the luxurious auditorium. At this time, students from other grades were sitting around 4 long tables according to their different colleges. Above the tables were thousands of candles floating in the air, which illuminated the entire auditorium. On the stage at the top of the auditorium, there was another long table, which was the seat for the professors. Sitting in the center was Dumbledore, wearing a luxurious dark blue robe, a flowing silver white long hair with a small wizard hat, and a very well-trimmed long beard, and of course, a long and crooked nose. Ethan and others were brought here by Professor McGonagall and lined up in a row, facing the 4 college students in front. After arranging all this, Professor McGonagall gently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first-year freshman. On the stool was a pointed wizard hat, which was patched, worn and dirty, and had a sense of history. Suddenly, the hat twisted, and a wide crack appeared on the edge of the hat, like a big mouth, and then it began to sing its annual self-entertainment with some strange melody, "You may think I am not beautiful." After 7 or 8 minutes, the sorting hat finally completed its annual self-entertainment program and received applause from the audience, not because of how well it sang, but because everyone cooperated. Now I call whose name, who will immediately come forward to put on the hat and sit on the stool to wait for the sorting. Professor McGonagall took out the parchment and said to the little wizards, "The real show is finally here." Hannah Abbott. A ruddy-faced girl with 2 golden braids stumbled out of the queue. It was Hannah, who had just been on the same boat with Ethan and others. Obviously, she was super nervous at the moment. Put on the hat, and it took only a moment to hear the result. Hufflepuff. Ethan could clearly see that Hannah's nervous cheeks relaxed, and at the same time, the people at the table on the right really applauded and cheered for Hannah's arrival. Susan Bones. Similarly, the result came out soon. Hufflepuff. Susan, who got the result, was not disappointed, and ran to Hannah and sat down happily. And the Badgers of Hufflepuff were even more excited, clapping desperately. With the arrival of 2 consecutive freshmen, the Hufflepuff family will continue its past glory this year and become the college with the most freshmen. As freshmen came forward one after another, the long tables of the 4 colleges below burst into amazing enthusiasm. Hermione Granger. Hearing her name, Hermione almost ran to the stool and hurriedly put the hat on her head. This time it took a little longer, but it was not to the point of being embarrassed. Gryffindor. After all, she went to Gryffindor. What happened next was no different from what Ethan remembered. Neville went to Gryffindor and Draco went to Slytherin. The atmosphere on the scene reached its peak when Harry Potter was sorted into Gryffindor. The cheers of the little lions almost overturned the roof of this 1,000-year-old castle. Cassandra Wally. The slender girl with golden curly hair walked out of the remaining team with graceful steps. Just when the hat just touched Cassandra's head, the sorting hat screamed, "Slytherin." Now it was the turn of the little snakes to cheer. This time it was not the perfunctory applause as before, but they were really changing their cheers. Chapter 20. Ethan Adrian. The whole team was empty, and now only Ethan was left. He walked forward with a nonchalant look on his face, put on the hat and sat on the stool, ready to start his own sorting. Although he knew the unforgivable curse and had used the killing curse to harvest people's lives, he should be sent to Azkaban. But the sorting hat obviously did not read the memory to sort the wizards, but because it gathered the ideas of the 4 founders at the time, it sorted the wizards to the colleges that suited them. In this process, we can indeed understand some of the little wizards' ideas and their shining points, but that's all. For this, Ethan has undergone special training, that is, the transfer of thoughts, which is the most basic ability of brain occlusion. You have magic power far beyond your peers, extremely high talent for dark magic, and some ambitions, and you are greedy enough. You are really a good seedling. Sachara should be very happy to see you, but your ambition is a bit strange, but the other things are in line with it. I am not a pure blood, not even a half-blood, can I enter Slytherin? Ethan asked with some curiosity. Of course it is possible, but in the past few hundred years, everyone has misunderstood the concept of Slytherin. The Slytherin of the past was ambitious, shrewd, valued honor, judged the situation, protected themselves, and victory was supreme. The regretful voice of the sorting hat sounded in Ethan's mind. It knew that the wizards had misunderstood, but it could not change it. Because this impression has been fixed, some wizards with this trait are unwilling to go to Slytherin, because it is already a gathering place for ambitious purebloods. These people often have nothing but ambition, but they just choose Slytherin. Although the sorting hat has the power to sort the houses, it cannot act completely on its own. It still has to consider the ideas of some young wizards, which is one of the reasons for the current situation. Actually, Azkaban is more suitable for you. I heard Dumbledore say that it is a gathering place for dark wizards and the cradle of dark magic. You will definitely achieve great success there. It's a pity that Azkaban is not included in Hogwarts. Some regretful voices sounded in Ethan's mind. Azkaban is a prison. Ethan was a little helpless. What's wrong with the prison? I once communicated with a professor of defense against the dark arts who returned to Hogwarts from Azkaban. He said that everyone there is talented and speaks well. I believe you will like it there too. The Sorting Hat was a little unconvinced. How could Ethan deny its judgment? The only pity is that Azkaban is not a Hogwarts school. I have heard Dumbledore sigh more than once that Azkaban has become a Hogwarts advanced class. So which school should I go to? I'll be with you for quite a while. Ethan didn't want to talk about Azkaban. What if those thoughts that can't be exposed are exposed? Why are you in a hurry? Sorting is a big deal and can't be rushed. The Sorting Hat's unhappy voice came. Okay, you continue. This is almost there, and he also has courage and adventurous spirit. Gryffindor is also quite suitable. Although the chivalry spirit is not very suitable, there is no perfect match these days. It's almost enough. Ravenclaw is not bad either, smart and wise, and very thirsty for knowledge. Boy, if you want to go to that school, talk to your hat. The nagging voice of the Sorting Hat sounded in Ethan's mind. Where is Hufflepuff? I have a good impression of this college. Hufflepuff? Integrity, loyalty, hard work, honesty, which one do you meet? Wouldn't it be a disaster for them if I let you in? No, absolutely not. The Sorting Hat rejected it on the spot. Although it had to refer to the little wizard's ideas, it couldn't be too outrageous. Ravenclaw. Before Ethan could say anything else, the Sorting Hat announced the result loudly. And left Ethan a message: your ambition can be perfectly realized in Ravenclaw. According to the aesthetics of wizards, that is the college with the most beauties. Warm applause sounded from the direction of Ravenclaw. Ethan's arrival made them particularly excited. This is a hat embarrassment, and it lasted for more than 10 minutes. And every hat embarrassment is not an ordinary wizard, such as the current Hogwarts Vice Principal Professor McGonagall. Arriving at the long table of Ravenclaw, Ethan greeted the seniors and classmates one by one. As expected, there are many girls in Ravenclaw, and many of them are beautiful. The Sorting Hat never deceived me. As Ethan stepped down, the sorting ceremony was completely over. Professor McGonagall put away the Sorting Hat and the four-legged stool, and sat down next to Dumbledore. Now it was Dumbledore's turn. He looked at the students with a smile on his face and opened his arms. It seemed that nothing made him happier than seeing the students gathered together. Welcome. Welcome everyone to Hogwarts to start a new school year. Before the banquet begins, I want to say a few words, that is, idiot. Crybaby. Scum. Carrie. Thank you everyone. After he sat down again, everyone applauded and cheered. I don't know if they were applauding for Dumbledore or for the upcoming feast. Today's dinner can be said to be the most sumptuous in Hogwarts in a year, with roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steaks, boiled and baked potatoes, fried potatoes, potato chips, Yorkshire puddings. At this moment, even the picky little wizard can find his favorite food, not to mention that from Ethan's picky eyes, these foods taste really good. Ethan was almost done eating, and started chatting with the pretty senior schoolmate next to him, Senior Clearwater. What does Dumbledore just said about idiots? Crybabies. Dregs. Twist. What exactly does that mean? It should be what each school thinks of other schools. Idiots. It means that our Ravenclaw wizards think they are the smartest, and students from other schools are idiots. Crybabies. It means that Gryffindor students think they are the most courageous, and students from other schools are cowards and like to cry babies. Dregs. Slytherin students think that they, the excellent purebloods, are the mainstream upper class in the wizarding world, and students from other schools are scraps and dregs. Twist. Hufflepuff students think they are loyal, upright, and united, while students from other schools are awkward and disunited. After thinking for a while, Penelope expressed her understanding. Penelope Clearwater, born in a Muggle family, is in the 5th grade this year. Thanks to her excellent grades and good management skills, she was just elected as the prefect this summer and is responsible for the reception of new students this year. In Ethan's eyes, Penelope is a good senior with brown hair, blue eyes, delicate face, and charming figure. Compared with flat girls like Cassandra and Hermione, Penelope is much more attractive. In the original book, there is only information that Penelope is 1 year younger than Percy, but they can be in the same grade. Harry is almost 1 year younger than Hermione. The twins are in the same grade as Cedric, but the twins are not old enough to participate in the Triwizard Tournament. Chapter 21. Oh, now that everyone is full, I want to say a few more words to everyone. After putting away all the uneaten food, Dumbledore stood up and faced the audience, and used magic to expand his voice to the whole audience. At the beginning of the semester, I want to give you a few points of attention. First-year students, please note that no students are allowed to enter the forest area on the school grounds. Of course, some of us old students should also remember this. Dumbledore deliberately glanced at Gryffindor. Since the two little guys entered the school, this school has been noisy. Also, the administrator Mr. Filch also asked me to remind everyone not to cast spells in the corridor during class breaks. The review of Quidditch players will be held in the second week of this semester. Any students who are interested in joining the college representative team should contact Ms. Hooch. After hearing this news, the scene instantly became noisy. Many students talked about how good their skills were and how it was unjust for the Quidditch team not to let them join. It can be seen that Quidditch is very popular in Hogwarts. Finally, I must tell everyone that if you don't want to encounter an accident or a painful death, please don't enter the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor. Ethan shook his head. Dumbledore started to set a trap for Voldemort. It was clear that there was something in the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor. If there was no such sentence last year, it would also indicate that it was not there before. At the same time, this news attracted more than just Voldemort. For those adventurous little wizards in Gryffindor, this is an adventure paradise, especially the twin brothers. Now, before everyone goes to bed, let's sing the school song together. Dumbledore said loudly. The smiles of other teachers seemed to freeze. As Dumbledore waved his wand, a golden ribbon floated in the air, twisting and coiling like a snake above the dining table, forming lines of text. Everyone chooses a tune they like. Ready, sing. So all the teachers and students stood up and sang loudly. The good school song was led astray by someone, not someone else, but the twin brothers again. Because they chose Funeral March. Freshmen, follow me, I will take you to the dormitory. Penelope stood up and gathered the newly enrolled young eagles. In fact, there were only 10 of them. Every year, Ravenclaw is the college with the fewest students, and this year is no exception. Walking out of the auditorium, through the long corridor, to the west tower, and then there is a long spiral staircase, which looks steep and long, as if it is endless. Well, it is very Ravenclaw-like. Or it can be said that the dormitories of the 4 colleges have their own characteristics. Eagles fight in the sky, lions overlook the territory, venomous snakes lie dark and humid, and honey badgers live underground. At the end of the spiral staircase, there is a wooden door without a handle. There is nothing on it except an eagle-shaped bronze door knocker inlaid on it. Unlike other colleges, we Ravenclaws can only enter if we answer the questions raised by this bronze door knocker correctly. Who among you will come and try? Penelope looked at the freshmen. Everyone looked at each other, and no one took the lead. Although those who can be assigned to Ravenclaw are all smart people, including smart ones, such as Lockhart, they will not easily put themselves in a potentially embarrassing situation without fully understanding the situation. Ethan, do you want to try? After looking around, Penelope looked at the little wizard who had just chatted with her happily, and even called her by name. According to the characteristics of the hat, Ethan is likely to be the best little wizard among the 4 colleges this year. No problem. Ethan stepped forward and wanted to try the water. How can you not go out at night when you come to Hogwarts, and you must open the door after the night tour? It is impossible to wait for other little eagles to answer and then follow them in like during the day. Knock on the door 3 times with a knocker, and it will ask a question. Ethan did as he was told. Suitable for proving the existence of a thing. A mysterious and magnetic voice sounded. Use it. Ethan replied affirmatively. Good answer. The knocker gave Ethan an affirmative answer and opened the door of the lounge. Penelope looked at Ethan with great appreciation. She had only seen Ethan among the freshmen who could answer the door ring question so quickly and accurately. Last year, the group of freshmen found the correct answer after thinking for a long time and trying and failing several times. Walking into the Ravenclaw common room, the interior presents a circular layout as a whole, with dark blue carpets on the floor, a dome with stars on the ceiling, elegant round windows on the wall, blue and bronze silk hanging, and a white marble statue of Rowena Ravenclaw in the middle of the lounge. Of course, the most eye-catching thing is the books. Bookshelves are neatly arranged on the walls around, and 80% of the shelves are filled with books. Some of these precious books were collected by students of Ravenclaw and chose to stay here after graduation, and some were donated by graduates and the contributions of the deans of all generations. After all the little wizards entered, Penelope stepped forward again and delivered the annual customary speech. First of all, welcome to Ravenclaw. It mainly talked about the glory of Ravenclaw, the glory of the college, and their own pursuits. In the previous life, Ethan had been full of all kinds of chicken soup and had no special feelings, but the little wizards on the side were quite excited. After the speech, Penelope also breathed a sigh of relief. Everything went smoothly today. And before leaving, he said a rule of Hogwarts, which is universal. Boys cannot enter the girls' dormitory, but girls can enter the boys' dormitory. Chapter 22. Ravenclaw's dormitory is a standard 4-person room. Bronze curtains hang above the 4 4-poster beds, and there are sky blue decorations around. Like the common room, the main colors are blue and bronze. Through the window of the room, you can clearly see the mountains and wilderness in the distance, as well as the Quidditch field below. There are 10 freshmen in Ravenclaw this year, and the boys just fill one dormitory. Terry Boot, who seems to have been sorted quite early, is a slightly thin black-haired boy who talks a lot. Michael Corner, who is tall and thin with brown hair, is more silent. Jean Croft, who is a little fat with blonde hair and likes to laugh. After putting away the luggage and washing up, Ethan climbed into bed. We definitely can't go out at night today. The stairs in Hogwarts will move, and we are not familiar with the road. It is a problem whether we can come back after going out. Before this summer, I couldn't imagine that there would be such a day that I would be a wizard. My parents are ordinary people. My father works in a bank and my mother is a full-time housewife. When I received the admission letter, I thought it was a prank. But fortunately, Professor Sprout came to explain everything, otherwise I might not be able to come to Hogwarts. Terry Boot leaned on the bed and said to the two of them excitedly. He was excited to enter the magical world for the first time. As for me, I don't know if I am half-blood. My mother's wizard was also born to muggles. She said that after graduating from Hogwarts, she returned to the muggle world. My father is just an ordinary person. It's just that before receiving the admission letter, my mother never revealed her identity as a wizard. The moment she said it, my father was scared. Also, my mother originally studied at Hufflepuff, and I thought I would go to Hufflepuff too. Michael Corner was not so excited, on the contrary, he was a little worried. I learned from my mother that it is not easy for muggle-born wizards to find jobs after graduating from Hogwarts, and even if they find jobs, they are not good positions, so not many muggle wizards can stay in the wizarding world. For example, his mother has not used a wand for more than 10 years. That day, in order to prove that she was a wizard, his mother searched for a wand at home, and finally found it in the innermost utility room. My parents are both wizards. My mother graduated from Slytherin and my father graduated from Gryffindor. Now they both work in the Ministry of Magic. My father said that it was my mother who chased her first. Before I came in, they were still discussing whether I would go to Gryffindor or Slytherin. I didn't expect. Jean Croft, listening to him, Ethan always felt that this was a standard template of a protagonist from a wizard family, especially if he had some talent. My situation is the same as Terry's. My family is ordinary people. Professor McGonagall came to answer the admission. Ethan also briefly talked about his situation. By the way, Ethan, you spent more than 10 minutes on the sorting today. I heard from the seniors next to you that it was a joke. How did you do it? Terry was a little curious about this. He learned from others that this was a very remarkable thing. I didn't do anything. It was just that the sorting hat was struggling with which house I should go to. Ethan would naturally not say that the sorting hat was telling him about Azkaban. The sorting hat is so confused that it must be suitable for multiple houses. You must be very good. No wonder the seniors are so excited. Terry sighed. He had just put on the hat for only 2 or 3 seconds, and it was confirmed. However, it was not bad to be sorted into Ravenclaw. Next, the 4 of them talked about many topics, from Diagon Alley, Gringotts, choosing wands, holiday life to today's Hogwarts Express. But most of the time it was Terry who talked, and Ethan, Michael, and Jean occasionally echoed a few words. But not long after, the dormitory gradually became quiet. At first, Michael fell asleep, and then Jean stopped moving. Terry couldn't stand it anymore, and after saying goodnight to Ethan, he also fell asleep. Rushed to the station early in the morning, and then took the train for more than 10 hours. Now that he was full, he was prone to sleepiness. It was good to be able to hold on until now. Ethan was staring at his panel at this moment. Since entering Hogwarts, he has completed a total of 2 achievements. Hogwarts, 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 please teach us knowledge. Whether we are bald old men or children with broken knees, our minds can accept some interesting mistakes because our brains are empty, full of air, dead flies, and trivialities. Teach us some valuable knowledge, give us back what we have forgotten. You just need to work hard, and leave the rest to us. We will study hard until it turns into dung. Achievement goal, arrive at Hogwarts, 1/1, achievement reward, random talent Ravenclaw. We come from the lakeside, we are wise and knowledgeable, we love to study, we are different from ordinary people, we are farsighted, we never give up, we are Ravenclaw. Achievement goal, join Ravenclaw Academy, 1/1, achievement reward, thinking ability, spell talent, alchemy talent are improved. This reward is a bit generous. The talent ability is definitely better than the reward of a magic. And the reward for joining Ravenclaw can only be said to be great. Ethan already has a double learning talent improvement, as well as bonus wizard talent, double black magic talent, and potion talent. Now he has gained improvements in thinking ability, spell talent, and alchemy talent. I can only say that this buff is too thick. This random talent is also good. Flame affinity improves the control and power of fire magic. The deeper the understanding of fire magic, the greater the improvement. This world does not divide any elemental magic, but there are magic involving various elements. There are relatively many fire ones, such as the fierce fire spell, fire escape protection, and fire god opening the way. Ethan was most impressed by Grindelwald's gas stove, which is really powerful and gorgeous. Chapter 23. The next day, just after 7 o'clock, Ethan woke up early from his sleep. This has become a habit. Taking out the schedule that was delivered with the gift yesterday, Ethan found that the courses at Hogwarts were arranged quite easily. There are 8 courses: charms, transfiguration, potions, herbology, defense against the dark arts, flying, history of magic, and astronomy. Flying, history of magic, and astronomy are all 1 class per week, and the rest are 2 classes per week. Each class is 1 hour long, and there is a half-hour break between the next class. Except for the 2 consecutive classes during potions, other classes are separated. Class time is from 9 o'clock to 11:30 in the morning and from 1:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The astronomy class is on Wednesday night. The 4 colleges all have classes together. There are only about 70 freshmen in total, and 1 classroom can accommodate them completely. Besides, if they were separated, there would be only 1 professor for each subject, but he would have to teach 7 grades, and there would be 2 groups of 14 classes. Many professors also have other duties, such as the dean. As the dean, he would have to deal with some affairs of his own college. When teaching, he would have to prepare lessons, correct homework, and prepare for exams. If you count it this way, the professors would not be able to survive. Even cattle and horses cannot be used like this. There was only 1 transfiguration class this morning, which started at 9 o'clock. It was still early. The other 3 were still sleeping soundly, and Ethan did not wake them up. He washed up and left the dormitory. "Senior, good morning." When he came to the common room, Ethan saw Penelope at a glance. Of course, in addition to her, there were also several seniors, each holding a book and reading. They were all really diligent. "Morning, Ethan, are you used to living in Ravenclaw's dormitory?" Penelope raised her head and greeted Ethan with a smile. "It feels okay. I don't like beds." Ethan sat down next to Penelope and saw the book Standard Spells V in her hand. "It's 7:30. Let's go and have breakfast with senior sister." Penelope stood up and stretched, revealing her perfect curves. She is really well developed at the age of 16 and has no lack of nutrition. Senior sister got up early to read books. Following Penelope, Ethan asked curiously. "Getting up at 6 o'clock to read books is not too early." Then he added, "This year, there will be O, W, L, and S exams. I also want to get O in all subjects. I can't do it without being serious." "Senior sister, it should be no problem. Being able to be a prefect is enough to prove their excellence, especially the prefect of Ravenclaw. A mere exam will definitely not be difficult for them. O, W, L, and S exams are ordinary wizard level exams, which are held in the 5th year and are directly related to the study of subsequent courses. There is also an N, E, W, T, S exam in the 7th grade, which is a senior wizard exam. The results of this exam are directly related to the development after graduation. Only those who get high scores can become core members of the Ministry of Magic. This is indeed not very difficult, but forget it, I won't talk about it. Penelope lost interest after saying this. If it was just the exam, she would definitely be among the top students in her class, but it would not work when it comes to other aspects. So she can only improve her evaluation as much as possible to add more opportunities for herself after graduation. Ethan also knew what she wanted to say, but it was better to pretend that he didn't know. The class solidification of wizards is indeed too serious, much more serious than that of muggles. Soon, the two came to the auditorium. Whether it was a meeting, a meal, or a holiday celebration, they all came to this auditorium. The breakfast was just so-so, far less rich than last night: milk, oatmeal, boiled potatoes, bread, ham, eggs, bacon, take it yourself. There are a total of 142 staircases in Hogwarts. Some stairs will change. For example, you only want to go to the 3rd floor, but you arrive at the 5th floor. It is not uncommon for new wizards to be late because of this problem. It's still early now. I'll take you for a walk. After wiping her mouth elegantly, Penelope said to Ethan. Okay, thank you, senior sister. Of course, Ethan would not refuse such a good thing. After all, it's easy to travel at night if you are familiar with the roads of Hogwarts. There is no good without reason in this world. Penelope is so enthusiastic because of Ethan's idiocy. She wants to make as many connections as possible. However, she found that Ethan is not only handsome, but also speaks well and is quite pleasant to get along with. He is just a little younger, so he is more sincere and treats him as a friend. Among the 3 idiocies in this world, the dead Peter Pettigrew has obtained the 1st class badge of the Merlin Knights. The remaining 2 are even more amazing, one is Professor McGonagall and the other is Professor Flitwick. Some news says that Flitwick is also idiocy. He couldn't decide between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw and finally went to Ravenclaw, which is exactly the opposite of Professor McGonagall. Ethan, who has the same talent, may also be able to reach the same level as them. A professor of a college has a very high status in the wizarding world. Who among the graduates of this college doesn't buy them a little face? And the reason why Penelope is like this is that there is a bad precedent in the past. Penelope, who was born as a Muggle wizard, had a senior who took good care of her when she entered school. She was also born as a Muggle. After graduating 2 years ago, she was rejected by the Ministry of Magic for many interviews. Various large magic industries were unwilling to accept her. Finally, after working as a temporary worker in Hogsmeade Village for 3 months, she chose to leave the wizarding world. This summer vacation, Penelope also visited the senior and found that she was not living well in the Muggle world and became a cashier in a bakery. Now she is almost 20 years old, has not even finished junior high school, has no skills, can't use magic, and can't find a good job at all. However, the senior has adapted to the life of Muggles and started a relationship. But Penelope doesn't want to return to the Muggle world like this senior. She wants to change her fate. Don't walk along the wall on this staircase, otherwise the floor it will reach is completely random. And this, you can't run on the stairs, if you run, it will be out of place, and sometimes there will be a gap for people to fall. Okay, these are the moving stairs, do you remember them? Remember, please help me, senior. It's no exaggeration to say that Ethan's memory is now photographic, and there is no pressure to remember the rules of these stairs. Well, it's almost time for class, I have to rush to the spell class now. Looking at the back of the senior who left in a hurry, Ethan turned around and went to the transfiguration classroom. As a class leader, Penelope is responsible for taking care of the freshmen, but there is no need to do this. Ethan also knows the reason for this, but she doesn't hate it. There is a reward for every effort, and she just invested in advance. Besides, who can refuse the initiative of a big wave senior? Chapter 24. On the 2nd floor of Hogwarts, Ethan walked into the transfiguration classroom. The first thing that caught his eye was the tabby cat lying on the podium. There was a circle of patterns around the eyes of the tabby cat, just like the glasses worn by Professor McGonagall. Ethan didn't dare to look at it anymore and hurried into the classroom. Several of his roommates were sitting and chatting. Seeing Ethan's arrival, they hurriedly greeted him. Ethan, we didn't see you after we woke up. Where have you been for so long? Getting familiar with the environment of Hogwarts with the senior. Ethan sat down directly next to Michael and didn't hide anything about it. Senior Penelope. Terry guessed the answer at a glance. Judging from the situation yesterday, Senior Penelope treated Ethan and other freshman Ravenclaw students differently. Yet. You are so lucky. Terry was a little envious. It was almost time for class. All the Ravenclaws had arrived, and Ethan was the last one. Looking around, the classroom is almost full. It seems that there are still a few people missing from Hufflepuff and Gryffindor. His eyes collided with Cassandra, but she turned her head away the next moment. Ethan found that Cassandra was sitting alone in the Slytherin group and did not choose to sit with others. Hermione had a desk mate, and the two were still chatting. Now they seemed to be harmonious. It should be her roommate. After observing Ethan chatting with his roommate in the classroom, he suddenly noticed that a little wizard's movements were a little weird. There is fun again. Ethan immediately sat up straight and looked towards the podium without blinking. A little witch from Hufflepuff was approaching the podium cautiously, with her hands in her pockets, as if holding something. Ethan remembered that her name seemed to be Crossan Pullman. On the side of the podium, in order not to alarm the tabby cat, Crossan slowly took out the things in her pocket, dried fish. Carrying snacks with her, she is worthy of being called Hufflepuff. Holding the dried fish in one hand, she slowly approached the tabby cat, and the other hand was suspended in the air, ready to stroke the tabby cat when it was eating. She had a Maine-Sea cat with catkin blood at home, which she had raised since childhood. If it were not for Hogwarts, where only owls, mice, and toads could be brought to school, she would definitely bring her own cat. She had not stroked a cat for 2 days, and the addiction had long been gone. Now that she saw a very cool cat, how could she miss it? If she could use the food she brought with her to lure it back to Hufflepuff, she could raise a cat openly. After all, it was not brought by herself, but a native cat of Hogwarts. Just when the dried fish was about 20 centimeters away from the cat's mouth, a group of Hufflepuff students walked in from outside the door. One of the girls quickly stepped forward, grabbed Croissant's hand, and dragged her back. Just now she was telling her friends on the way that Professor McGonagall might turn into a cat to test us, but she was just a step late, and this friend she just met yesterday almost fell into the trap. When she was about 9 years old, her sister enrolled in Gryffindor College of Hogwarts. At her request, she wrote some interesting stories about Hogwarts for herself, and she mentioned this incident. A group of little witches from Hufflepuff, before the first Transfiguration class, surrounded Professor McGonagall's cat and wanted to touch it, and she was scared to death. Ethan could clearly see that the tabby cat glanced at the little witch. It was obvious that the old cat lady was really fishing for law enforcement, and the little witch ruined Professor McGonagall's good deeds. Soon, the bell for class rang, but Professor McGonagall still did not appear. Although there was no teacher, no one dared to play and fight in the classroom, because Professor McGonagall left a serious and rigid impression on the little wizards yesterday. If you dare to make trouble in her class, you will obviously not get a good result. About 10 minutes later, Professor McGonagall still hadn't arrived. Some of the young wizards couldn't sit still and started to whisper. Everyone was guessing why Professor McGonagall was late. Ethan even heard a few young wizards talking about whether Professor McGonagall forgot to attend class because of a date. Ethan was shocked to hear this. They were so bold to guess. It wasn't until the door of the classroom was suddenly pushed open that the scene quieted down. Ronald and Harry made a brilliant appearance. The two looked around the classroom nervously at first, and when they found that Professor McGonagall hadn't arrived, they were obviously relieved. If they weren't caught, they wouldn't be late. Ronald even said to Harry excitedly, "Can you imagine how ugly old McGonagall would look if he knew we were late?" Ethan, who heard all this clearly, just wanted to say one sentence: "What a trick." No matter how old a woman is, she doesn't like to hear the word old. As expected, as Ronald finished speaking, the tabby cat in the lecture jumped down from the stage, and his body began to twist and deform. Before landing, he had already turned into Professor McGonagall. Ronald, who had just smiled because Professor McGonagall had not arrived, froze immediately. Although Professor McGonagall looked unhappy, he finally achieved his goal. In the first Transfiguration class for freshmen every year, Professor McGonagall would use the animagus form to fish for law enforcement. The goal was to highlight the power of Transfiguration, attract the interest of young wizards, and shock them. "That's amazing," Ronald complimented, hoping to avoid punishment. "Thank you for your compliment, Mr. Weasley. Perhaps turning Mr. Potter and Lee into a pocket watch would be more effective. Maybe you will know the meaning of being on time." Apparently Professor McGonagall still had a grudge against the phrase "Old McGonagall." "We are lost." Harry was a little worried about being late for the first class, and the one who was his own dean, so he quickly explained. "Then turn it into a map." After all, Professor McGonagall didn't make it too difficult for the two. You don't need a map to find your seat. Chapter 25. Transfiguration is the most dangerous and complex magic you will learn in Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall's sharp eyes swept all the little wizards present. "If anyone dares to be naughty in my class, I will ask him to leave and never come back." The little wizards sat upright and did not dare to breathe, even the Slytherins who were not on good terms with Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall looked at the performance of the little wizards below with satisfaction, and then tapped the podium with the wand in his hand, turning it into a pig. The pig also circled the classroom, and finally returned to its original position and restored its appearance as a podium. This operation caused a burst of exclamations from the little wizards below. As a veteran professor for many years, McGonagall knows how to pull the emotions of students. Then Professor McGonagall waved his wand, and the next moment the empty blackboard was filled with the basic theory of transfiguration and various precautions. Unlike other magic, transfiguration has no fixed spells and formulas. Of course, beginners can use quick transfiguration as a spell to assist in casting. Relying on the understanding of the essence of magic, through your own huge mental power, based on magic, the things in your mind can be transformed into the real world, changing the properties and structure of objects, and it must be something you have sufficient knowledge of. Professor McGonagall pointed at the knowledge points on the blackboard with his wand and explained to the young wizards, however, transfiguration cannot produce food, let alone eat the food produced by transfiguration. Secondly, it cannot change the quantity. A feather pen cannot produce 2 pigeons. Finally, transfiguration is not something out of nothing. It must have a certain medium. After Professor McGonagall finished explaining, the young wizards took out their feather pens and took notes. Although Ethan knew all this knowledge, he still recorded it. After the explanation, it was time for practice. Professor McGonagall gave each young wizard a match. The next topic was to turn the match into a needle. Professor McGonagall did not intend to let these little wizards complete this learning in one class. This is a long process, but once completed, transfiguration will be considered as an entry. The transformation between still objects is the simplest, especially between objects of the same small size and simple. I want you to become a needle, not a charcoal. Calm down and focus. No matter how much you poke the match with your wand, it will not change. Professor McGonagall kept walking in the classroom corridor, correcting the mistakes of the little wizards. Especially on Hufflepuff's side, Professor McGonagall stayed for a particularly long time. "Ethan, how did you do it?" Michael looked at the match in front of Ethan, which was constantly changing in 3 sizes after it turned into a needle, and exclaimed. The two sitting in front also turned their heads. Their matches had not changed at all, but Ethan had succeeded. The gap was too big. At this moment, everyone wanted to hear what tricks Ethan had. The more specific the image of the needle in your mind is, the easier it will be to succeed. Also, control your magic power, don't light the match, and finally read what Professor McGonagall wrote on the blackboard before trying again. I actually practiced transfiguration during the summer vacation, so I succeeded so quickly. As long as you understand what Professor McGonagall said, even if you can't turn into a needle directly, it's still no problem to change. But it's really hard to say how to change specifically. Mr. Adrian, a very good transfiguration. Professor McGonagall walked to Ethan's side, looked at the scene in front of him, and said with great satisfaction. When I first visited him, I felt that Ethan had a high talent for transfiguration, but it was a pity that he still didn't come to Gryffindor. Because of Mr. Adrian's excellent transfiguration spell, Ravenclaw gets 5 points. Picking up the needle that Ethan had transformed, Professor McGonagall announced in public. In an instant, the eyes of the whole classroom turned to Ethan, and the little eagles of Ravenclaw were particularly excited, and applause broke out. It's him again. Yesterday's had embarrassment, today's transfiguration class, a mood blood, why is he always the one who steals the show? Draco Malfoy looked at Ethan fiercely, but didn't dare to show it. After all, he really couldn't beat Ethan. He didn't dare to tell his father. If he said that he was beaten by a mood blood, such a shameful thing would be unspeakable. He didn't dare to tell the senior students of Slytherin. If they knew, the Malfoy family might be ridiculed for 2.5 years. Cassandra and Hermione increased the speed of waving their wands. They both wanted to compete with Ethan today. Especially Cassandra. She lost the fire spell competition on the train yesterday, but she was fighting in the transfiguration class today, overwhelmed Ethan's idea of a euro winning glory for Slytherin. Thank you, Professor. Ethan smiled and thanked. Just now, at the moment when Professor McGonagall added points, another achievement was completed. Points slave points, constantly rising points, I can give everything for higher points achievement goal, add points to the school once, 1/1, achievement reward, transfiguration talent improvement. This reward is really necessary. Maybe it's the points added in the transfiguration class, so it's the transfiguration talent. One class lasted only an hour, not long. When the class was about to end, there was a cry from Slytherin, Professor McGonagall, we Slytherins also succeeded. This was the voice of a little wizard who was a little excited. He was looking in the direction of Cassandra, and he was quite excited. If you didn't know him, you would think he succeeded. Although he didn't win the first place, he also beat Gryffindor. Professor McGonagall walked over and smiled. She didn't expect that 2 little wizards would succeed in the first class. She didn't have any prejudice against Slytherin, but it was a pity that there was no one in her own academy who was not successful. After showing the silver-white needle, she announced, Ms. Volley also succeeded, Slytherin added 2 points. But Cassandra was not very happy. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.